Chapter 30:20. In the face of this pressure, even the heavenly thunder wings lost their effect. Under such circumstances, Zichun, who sensed the threat of death, naturally used his full strength. His full strength was his strongest lightning body, and countless lightning bolts erupted from his body. The light domain that flew out from the soul beast's body instantly shattered, and a violent aura appeared from Zichun's body. The powerful suppression of the laws was completely eliminated by the lightning body. Looking at the approaching soul beast, Zichun clenched his fist and attacked. Lightning surged on the surface of his fist. This was the pure power of the lightning body. Boom! The lightning fist landed on the soul beast's head, and a powerful force erupted. The soul beast's body was sent flying by Zichun's punch. The soul beast that flew out tumbled hundreds of feet away. The light on the surface of its body became very dim, and in the next moment, its body disappeared like a phantom. Puff! In the distance, the native named Khufu's aura instantly weakened, and then he coughed up a mouthful of blood. The expressions of the other cold-looking existences immediately changed drastically. They were very shocked by this sudden change. At this moment, Zichun's body was flickering with lightning. This was the pure light of the lightning body, and he was like a thunder god. He held a long saber in his hand and said coldly, "You're relying on those laws. Without the protection of the laws, you're simply vulnerable." As soon as his voice fell, the thunder wings behind Zichun shook, and his figure disappeared. Seeing Zichun disappear, Frank's expression changed drastically, and he shouted, "Khufu, it's too late. Remember to remind me earlier next time." The cold voice belonging to Zichun sounded. He suddenly appeared beside Khufu, and his long saber was unsheathed again. Lightning flashed, and it was still the power of the lightning body. At this moment, Khufu's aura was very weak, and he couldn't defend against Zichun's attack at all. However, Zichun still used his full strength, and his expression was very solemn. His eyes and spiritual thoughts were staring straight ahead. The moment the blade landed on the other party's body, before Khufu could defend, a mysterious light appeared and blocked the blade. This light was still the light of the laws, and it was a light of the laws that greatly restrained the god race. Under normal circumstances, this light of the laws was like an absolute defense that couldn't be broken by anyone of the same level, unless it was a king third stage netherworld. But now, Zichun used the power of the lightning body. This power didn't belong to this world, and it had the power to ignore the laws. As the saber beam slashed out, the nomological light instantly shattered. The blade flashed with lightning as it swept past Khufu's neck. Puff! Blood splattered Khufu, and a human head flew high. When the other four people saw this scene, they were petrified. At this moment, two words appeared in their minds. Netherworld. The existence that could kill the natives was called the Netherworld in this world. However, the Netherworld was usually a King Grade 3, but the one in front of him was a King Grade 1. King Epin's Netherworld? Khufu's body fell to the ground, and his head also fell in an arc. At the moment of his death, Khufu's eyes were still wide open in disbelief. The sheathed long blade had already been sheathed. Zichun turned around and looked at the four people coldly. When they met Zichun's cold eyes, the four people's hearts trembled and they subconsciously retreated. "We can't leave. We have to kill him," Boral suddenly shouted. The other three understood Boral's meaning. If Zichun was allowed to escape today, then Zichun's existence would be a disaster and a nightmare for the Aboriginals in the future. Zichun's expression was cold as he took a step forward. The lightning wings behind him flapped, leaving behind a bolt of lightning on the spot, and his body disappeared. Roar! An angry roar came from Frank's side, and another soul beast appeared. At the same time, three soul beasts appeared in other directions. The soul beasts looked different, but their auras were very powerful. At this moment, after they appeared, their auras faintly showed signs of merging, causing Zichun to feel even more pressure. "Attack with all your strength," Frank shouted. His hands formed a seal, and a light domain appeared, forming an extremely strong oppressive force that enveloped Zichun. The other three did the same. In an instant, four light domains appeared, suppressing Zichun forcefully. The lightning on Zichun's body dimmed in the face of the four pressure, as if it was suppressed. Buzz. His expression was cold, and he no longer hid his strength. He activated the lightning body with all his strength. The blood in his body was almost boiling, and a lot of lightning power appeared from his body and poured into his body. Boom! The lightning body went berserk, and Zichen's body could no longer be seen. Only the flashing lightning could be seen. At the same time, an indescribably powerful aura spread in all directions. Sensing this powerful aura, Frank and the other three people's expressions changed drastically. He turned his head and shouted, "Send an emergency message." Swoosh! A strong light flew into the sky and instantly exploded, forming a strong fluctuation that spread in all directions. Just as they sent the signal, a thunderous sound came from the front. Facing the four soul beasts, Zichon threw a punch. It was just a punch. This fist landed in the air, and the lightning contained within it exploded. It was just like the yin-yang lightning lotus, but its power was many times stronger. Violent lightning spread out and instantly enveloped the bodies of the four soul beasts. This was the lightning explosion fist. It was an extension of the lightning body. The name sounded simple, and it only made the power of the lightning body explode, but the power was very terrifying. The four soul beasts didn't even have time to scream in the explosion of energy before their bodies were destroyed and dissipated. At the same time, a strong fluctuation spread out, and the four people in the distance were forced back by the energy, coughing up blood in midair. At this moment, their faces were full of shock. They never thought that Zichen would be so powerful that he could fight against the four of them alone. Lightning flashed, and Zichen walked out. His expression was cold, and he held the blade in his hand tightly. His eyes were full of killing intent. "Let's go." The four people looked at each other and wanted to retreat in fear. The corners of Zichen's mouth curled up into a smile. It was a disdainful sneer. His lightning wings flapped again, and his body disappeared. Swish! In the blink of an eye, he appeared beside one of them and unsheathed his long blade. At this moment, he didn't use the yin-yang energy. Instead, he used the pure light of the lightning body. The blade swept past, and a head flew, and blood spurted out. Decapitation. Swish! His figure flashed again, and he appeared beside another person. The blade light was unsheathed again. The previous lightning explosion had consumed a lot of his energy. Now, with every attack, the power of the lightning body was constantly consumed. Another head flew into the air. "Don't kill me! Don't kill me!" Frank looked at Zichen in horror and begged for mercy. He was the last one. "Stop!" At this moment, a loud shout came from afar, and a strong aura emerged. Hearing this shout, Frank's eyes flashed with joy, and he shouted, "Save me!" Zichen smiled coldly and slashed with the blade in his hand. Chapter 30:21. After one slash, Boar was beheaded by Zichen as expected. At this moment, Zichen had exhausted the power of his thunder body. Powerful auras surged behind him. More natives had arrived. The battle had started and ended quickly, but there were still so many people. It was clear that they were not the only ones who had come this time. Zichen turned around to look at the natives. His body released beams of energy, which swept the dead bodies of the natives to Zichen. Buzz. The natives wanted to seal the space. Although they were far away, Zichen could still see the shock and anger on their faces. Swoosh. With a cold smile, Zichen opened his world. His world expanded, and his body disappeared from where he stood. Where is he? Seeing Zichen disappear, the natives were stunned. Zichen teleported several thousand miles away. Then, he teleported several more times. After making sure that he had shaken everyone off, he returned to his world. "How is it?" Everyone was staring at Zichen. His aura was very weak. Zichen said, "These natives have a stronger restraining effect on us. They are immune to all energy attacks. Only the thunder body can hurt them." When the others heard this, their faces revealed a trace of shock. It should be known that Zichen was the strongest existence on this life star. Besides being a nature-defying being, his body also had two different kinds of energy. These two kinds of energy could pose a threat to the heavenly beasts in this area. If even his energy attacks were ineffective on the natives, then no one in this world could threaten them. That was the truth. In this world, no one at the same level could be a match for the natives. Thinking back to the previous battle, Zichun said, "There's a special power in their bodies. It's like the power of law that we comprehended when we were in the Earth realm. Their strength comes from that power of law, and it can suppress us. Without this power of law, the fighting power of the natives would be the same as a normal god king. They would be far weaker than us." Through the battle, Zichun knew that as long as he could break this layer of law, he could kill the natives. However, it seemed impossible. Currently, only the lightning physique possessed such power. Zichun asked Shadowless if he had encountered a similar problem in the past. Shadowless shook his head and said that he had never encountered such a problem, so he could not give a reasonable opinion. If that's the case, won't we be suppressed forever? Everyone's expression turned ugly. Thinking of the destructive power formed by the thunder body, Zichun said, "Unless we find a stronger power to break these rules." In other words, this was the purpose of the Divine King, Heavenly Domain's trial. Otherwise, you will be suppressed forever. But where can I go to find a powerful force? If they did, the god race here wouldn't have been suppressed all this time. This was indeed the crux of the matter. If they were truly powerful, the Protoss, who had the advantage in numbers, would have long had a change in their status here. Just as everyone was feeling helpless, a light figure appeared. It was the saber spirit of the 9 extreme weapons. Senior. When Zichun saw Sword Spirit, he immediately bowed. The others also became serious. It was the first time Martin, Lunk, and Luoi had seen Sword Spirit, so their expressions were strange. If you don't have any other solution, then first comprehend the king true meaning of the ancestral steel. After comprehending one true meaning, you will comprehend all 3 true meanings of the ancestral steel. Then, you can integrate the ancestral steel into the 9 extreme weapons. Perhaps you can control this situation. Sword Spirit looked at everyone and said. When Zichun and the others heard this, their eyes brightened. However, Luoi and the other 2 were still confused. This was for those who had the 9 extreme weapons. There were only 9 extreme weapons on the Life Star. However, they had not obtained all of them. They had only obtained the saber, the sword, the spear, the shield, and the spear. As for the flag, the staff, and the axe, they had not found any clues yet. However, to everyone, this news was equivalent to sending charcoal in snowy weather. Zichun began to recover the consumption of his thunder body. At the same time, his body flashed. Golden Body and 2 clones appeared at the same time. He began to comprehend the saber essence and the extreme speed. He had already reached the Wang Yiping level. Under such circumstances, he could comprehend the saber essence equivalent to a grade 1. Of course, his comprehension speed would be fast. The sword spirit disappeared again. This was not the real solution, but it would help them temporarily. After his consumed thunder body power was fully recovered, Zichun did not comprehend the saber essence with his clones. Instead, he checked the storage rings of the 5 people. As the rings were opened, the first things that entered his eyes were many ores and other resources. Seeing these half-finished resources, Zichun understood everything. These people must have something to do with the Senma organization. Then, he saw the Supreme Crystal, which was the thing he cared about the most. After checking, there were more than 2,000 Supreme Crystals. Besides these Supreme Crystals, there were more resources that were useless to Zichun. Zichun took out these God King crystals and distributed them to everyone so that they could increase their strength as soon as possible. Meanwhile, he left the world. Now, some natives had come to find him. Although he had teleported away, they would still come for him. Rather than passively waiting for them to find him, he might as well take the initiative. Moreover, he needed the Supreme Crystal badly. Since he did not have the ability to mine it himself, he could only snatch it from the natives. "If you kill me, I will kill you." There seemed to be no problem. Zichun's figure disappeared from the spot. Thousands of miles away, another team of 5 people appeared. They were heading to other organizations to exchange resources. Every time, the 5 of them would travel together. After witnessing Boar's death with their own eyes, they were shocked to the extreme. It seemed that they had never seen such a powerful outsider since they could remember. Currently, the two teams were not too far apart from each other. If anything happened, they would be able to support each other in time. Shoo! Just as they were searching for traces of the god race, a light figure suddenly appeared before their eyes. Following the appearance of this silhouette, these people's expressions changed. When they saw that it was Zichun, they retreated and yelled at the same time, displaying all kinds of techniques. Boom! Thunder erupted from Zichun's body, and the 12-winged heavenly thunder wings appeared behind him. With great speed, he arrived in front of one of them. He unsheathed his long saber. This was a move that could split space, using the pure power of the thunder body. The rules that appeared on the body of this native were instantly destroyed when they met this saber. At the same time, the saber light swept past the native's body. Blood splattered as the native's body was cut open. Seeing this, the other natives retreated in horror. His battle prowess was a little too strong. Shoo! Chapter 30:22. After Zichun used the heavenly thunder wings, his speed reached its peak. As long as he did not come into contact with the natives, he would not be suppressed at all. Even if he was suppressed by the domain, he could still exert a certain amount of speed. This speed was enough to dazzle the natives and make them unable to distinguish between things. Speaking of which, they had an advantage in terms of rules. They were powerful because of rules, not because they had mastered some powerful technique. Compared to them, whether it was the heavenly thunder wings or the 9 passing lightning, they were techniques that had been passed down for countless generations. Puff, puff, puff. Because he took the initiative to attack, Zichun still had some energy left after using his strongest 5 slashes. He glanced at the other indigenous people who were about to arrive, and a smile appeared on his face. With a flash of light, he swept up the corpse and left. What followed was naturally to escape and then recover. His combat strength is very strong, but he consumes a lot of energy. He can only kill 5 at most. In the team that followed behind, one of the natives said in a low voice, "Call more people. As long as we surround him, he will definitely die." Before the news could be sent back, another 2 5-man teams were killed. When the news of a divine clan member, Wang Yiping, killing 20 natives spread, it caused a huge uproar. No one would believe it, but they had to. A Wang Yiping has such great combat strength. Could it be that he has awakened that power? In the nearest Soul City, an elderly native asked. It doesn't seem like it. Every time he attacks, he consumes a lot of energy, said one of the native's subordinates. Then send more people to kill him. We can't let him live. The elderly native said coldly. Yes. The other party retreated. Damn it. You have such skills without awakening that power. Once you succeed in advancing, won't you be able to change the situation of this world? An old native's eyes flashed with a cold light. If a rank 1 can't kill him, then let a rank 2 do it. If a rank 2 still can't do it, then go to the soldier and craftsman clans and ask for reinforcements. I don't believe that you can survive this siege. In less than a month, Zichun had already killed 6 teams. After that, he did not make any more moves. Instead, he left the area. He had obtained a lot of Supreme Crystal and many other resources that were of no use to him. Now, he needed to find a faction and exchange the resources he obtained for Supreme Crystal. As he went deeper into the mountains, Zichun discovered some veins that were being mined. As he followed these veins, he discovered the encampment of a certain faction. This place was even bigger than Senma's, so there should be more Supreme Crystal stored here. Zichun flew straight ahead. During this time, some people saw Zichun, but did not stop him. This was because he was just Wang Yiping, which was too ordinary here. It was only when Zichun tried to fly towards the core area that he was stopped. Who are you? A Wang Yiping stopped him with an unfriendly look on his face. Zichun said, Where is your leader? I want to make a deal with him. A deal? Wang Yiping looked him up and down, his face full of doubt. If you're not here to make a deal, are you here to assassinate me? Zichun said indifferently, Wait here. The man turned around. Obviously, he was going to report. After a while, a second-grade Wang Yiping arrived. He sized up Zichun and said, You're just a Wang Yiping. What deal do you want to make with me? Zichun took out a divine ring and threw it to him. He said, "Show it to your leader and exchange all these things for superm crystal." The second-grade Wang Yiping casually opened the divine ring, but in the next moment, his expression changed. He looked at Zichun in surprise and doubt. "Do you have the guts to accept it?" Zichun asked. "Wait a moment." The man's tone was much more polite. At the same time, he returned the divine ring to Zichun. The next moment, a middle-aged man appeared. He was a third-grade Wang Yiping. At this level, he was not afraid of a native Wang Yiping. A force with a third-grade Wang Yiping in charge should be able to swallow this amount of resources. "I'm Gu Ding. How should I address you, friend?" The third-grade Wang Yiping saluted Zichun. Zichun said lightly. Some of the Protoss in the distance looked over curiously. They were surprised to see a third-grade Wang Yiping leader being so polite to a Wang Yiping. The other party invited Zichun to his residence for a chat, but Zichun refused. He said directly, "Can you exchange these resources of mine?" The third-grade Wang Yiping Gu Ding said, "I can, but the price is different. You have the final say in the price." Zichun said directly. These things were snatched from others. It was good enough for him to exchange them for resources. "I only want the superm crystal," Zichun repeated. "How many of these resources do you have?" Gu Ding asked. Zichun took out 30 divine rings. The divine rings emitted a faint light and flew toward Gu Ding. The second-grade Wang Yiping had seen the resources in one of the divine rings. At that time, his expression became serious. However, after seeing these 30 divine rings, he was even more shocked. Gu Ding took the divine rings. After examining them with his divine telekinesis, his expression changed drastically. "So many?" he said involuntarily. "Can I exchange them?" Zichun asked. Gu Ding's expression changed. The other party was just a mere Wang Yiping, but he had so many resources. Even if their forces were to mine these resources, it would take several years to extract them. The things in these divine rings were the result of years of production. This made him a little tempted. Seeing that Gu Ding did not answer immediately, Zichun frowned. "This price," Gu Ding said hesitantly, "but it was more like a test. At least half of what you normally exchange." Zichun gave him a baseline price. It was obviously fair. Gu Ding's expression became awkward. At the same time, there was a fierce struggle in his mind. "You really are here." At that moment, a cold voice suddenly sounded. The void broke open, and several rays of light appeared. These rays of light turned into the appearance of the indigenous people. There were 5 of them. Seeing these 5 indigenous people, Gu Ding's expression changed drastically. He immediately retreated, not forgetting to collect the 30 divine rings containing resources. Zichun did not say anything. He just looked at these indigenous people coldly. "Today, you will die." The indigenous person snorted coldly. Behind him, the void opened again, and another 5 indigenous people appeared. A total of 10 people appeared. Chapter 3023. Gu Ding and the King Rank 2 retreated. When he saw the 10 natives in front of him, his face was full of shock. Who the hell is he? How did he attract 10 natives here? Gu Ding was very shocked. Although he was a King Rank 3, he could barely block one of the natives in a real fight. It was blocking, not killing. If he had the strength to kill the natives, he would have been targeted by Netherworld. The King Rank 2 next to him had a very serious expression. His eyes were fixed on Zichun, who was surrounded by the natives. At the same time, the Protoss in the distance also noticed this scene. They looked up at the sky with a shocked expression. Boom! They saw Wang Yiping suddenly erupt with a violent aura. Dazzling lightning flashed from his body. An extremely strong pressure fell from the sky and swept over this part of the world. Feeling this strong pressure, everyone's expression changed drastically. The next moment, he disappeared. When he reappeared, he was behind one of the natives. He had a long saber in his hand. The saber was unsheathed instantly. A thunderous saber light flashed and the natives were beheaded. Looking at the headless body spurting blood, all the Protoss faces were full of horror. At the same time, many exclamations were heard. "Netherworld! He's Netherworld!" It was recognized by all the Protoss that the Netherworld was able to kill the natives. However, all the Netherworlds were King Rank 3. They had never seen Wang Yiping's Netherworld. Its Netherworld. Gu Ding's expression changed drastically. In addition to shock, there was also a touch of panic. Just a moment ago, he had the thought of killing the natives to steal their resources. After killing the enemy with one slash, Zichen continued with his second slash and killed another person. After killing more than 30 natives, Zichen had already summed up his killing experience. When killing them, he could not hold back. He had to go all out. Not only could he kill the enemy effectively, but he could also reduce his consumption. That kind of back-and-forth battle was too disadvantageous for him. With his current full strength, he could probably kill 7 natives. Of course, the natives wouldn't just stand there and let him kill them. They retreated one after another and quickly formed hand seals. Soul beasts appeared one after another. After the soul beast appeared, the pressure it released was extremely oppressive to Zichen. At the same time, this oppressive aura spread out in all directions, causing the Protoss in the distance to cry out in alarm and retreat. From that aura, they could feel an extremely strong threat. Whoosh! Zichen's expression remained cold as he looked at these soul beasts. His figure flashed, and he disappeared from where he was. At this moment, under the boundless pressure, his extreme speed was also affected to a certain extent. Fortunately, he was still very fast, and the power of his lightning body was still very strong. Puff! A soul beast was slashed apart by the blade. At the same time, the blade didn't slow down at all as it slashed through the body of the native who couldn't escape in time. Blood splattered everywhere as another person died. Of the 10 Aborigines, only 7 remained. However, the 7 of them had already retreated far away, leaving only the 7 soul beasts behind. The leader of the soul tribe said coldly, "Today, you must die." After the Protoss who had retreated far away felt safe, they stopped and looked forward again. At this moment, even more God race beings had arrived from all directions. When they saw everything that was happening, they exclaimed in shock. They had only heard of the Netherworld and had never really seen it. However, they didn't expect it to be so powerful after seeing it today. It killed 3 Aborigines in an instant, and it was an instant kill among those of the same level. Isn't the Netherworld too terrifying? Gu Ding looked at the corpses on the ground with an extremely shocked expression. Next to him, the Wang Yiping said, "Could it be that he obtained the divine rings from before in this way?" If that was the case, it was too incredible. The 30 divine rings represented the lives of 30 Aborigines. At this moment, the 7 soul beasts attacked at the same time. They flew towards Zichen, and during this time, light flowed around their bodies. The special rule power that suppressed the Protoss formed a domain-like halo of light that suppressed Zichen. Faced with this kind of suppression, even Gu Ding, a Wang Yiping, would find it difficult to move, let alone Zichen, who was just a Wang Yiping. At this moment, Zichen didn't move at all. In their eyes, he was completely suppressed to the point that he couldn't move at all. The Aborigines sneered as the 7 soul beasts pounced in front of him. At this moment, Zichen moved. Lightning flashed on his body as he punched toward the sky. Thunder explosion fist. The fist landed in the void and exploded instantly. A powerful wave visible to the naked eye spread out in all directions. The 7 soul beasts were instantly enveloped by this force. At the same time, under the powerful surge of energy, these soul beasts were sent flying into the distance. The soul beasts that were sent flying became weak, but they didn't dissipate. Zichen stood in the air, his face a little pale. In the case of 1 against 7, his punch consumed a lot of energy, equivalent to killing several Aborigines. "This is your limit, isn't it?" The leader of the Aborigines snorted, showing disdain. In fact, in his heart, he was very shocked because the other party obviously hadn't awakened the powerful strength that only the Protoss had, but he still had such a terrifying skill. This was already the first person in history. If they didn't have the advantage in numbers and the absolute suppression of the rules, they would have died long ago. The Protoss in the crowd were very shocked, but at the same time, they felt very sorry. In their opinion, this ridiculously strong powerhouse died just like that. Zichen smiled and said, I admit that it's difficult for me to kill you after you've joined forces, but who said that I'm alone? Look behind you. The Aborigines snorted again and said disdainfully, this kind of insignificant skill, you want to. Before he could finish his sentence, cries of surprise came from all around. Above their heads, a plant suddenly appeared. In the next moment, this plant pierced through the body of one of the Aborigines like a spear. During this time, the light of rules that appeared on the surface of the Aborigines' bodies couldn't affect him at all. While piercing through the body of one of the Aborigines, this plant with only one leaf didn't have any intention of stopping. The thin leaf continued to extend and pierce through the body of the second Aborigines, then the third. At this time, the leader of the Aborigines only realized that something was wrong at this time. When he turned around, he saw that 3 of his companions were pierced through by a green light and connected together. Not good. Chapter 30-24. The sudden appearance of the spirit-devouring king grass pierced through the bodies of 3 natives. Now, there were only 4 enemies left for Zichun to face. As soon as the 3 soul beasts retreated from the battlefield, Zichun took advantage of the moment when the pressure on him decreased and disappeared. In the next moment, he appeared beside one of them and slashed with his sword. Decapitation. Death. His figure flashed and disappeared again. Before the pressure of the rules could land on him, the blade had already landed on the second native. Poof! Blood splattered everywhere. Another one died. There were only 2 enemies left, including the leader. Terrified, they turned and ran. Do you think you can escape? Zichun's eyes flashed coldly. His figure disappeared twice. During this time, the leaves of the spirit-devouring king grass pierced through the bodies of the natives that were falling to the ground like snakes. Then, it connected them together and devoured their energy. The battle ended quickly. There were no more enemies around. The spirit-devouring king grass continued to devour these people's energy. The previous 3 natives were dead. The surroundings were silent. Everyone seemed to be petrified. Zichun turned around and looked at Gu Ding in the distance. Is the Supreme Crystal ready? Gu Ding, who was still in shock, came back to his senses. Besides shock, there was also relief in his eyes. If these people had not come in time, he would have been the one to be slaughtered. Give me the Supreme Crystal you have. This master wants to exchange some resources with us. Hurry up. Gu Ding turned around and shouted at the God Kings in the distance. The others around him also came back to their senses. They knew why this master wanted to exchange resources with them. They took out the Supreme Crystal they had and handed it to Gu Ding. Some had 1 piece, while others had 2 pieces. After a while, Gu Ding had gathered a portion of the Supreme Crystal. He brought it to Zichun and said, "This is all I have for now. If you trust me, master, after we exchange these resources, you can come and get the rest." All right. Zichun nodded. He took the Supreme Crystal and left without looking at it. The spirit-devouring king grass, which was still devouring the spirit-devouring king grass, twisted a few times before disappearing. Wang Erpin, who was standing next to Gu Ding, looked hesitant as he watched Zichun leave. He seemed to have made up his mind and immediately flew forward. "Hu Ka, what are you doing?" Gu Ding asked. "I have a question that I would like to ask you, sir." The king's second rank named Hu Ka said. He flew forward in the direction Zichun had left. Hundreds of miles away, Zichun stood indifferently. He turned around and looked at the second-grade king. "Greetings, my lord." The second-rank king saluted Zichun respectfully with his fists clasped. No matter where one was, strength was everything. "You're from the underworld?" Zichun looked at the other party. Previously, he had heard the other party's voice transmission, which was why he had stopped and waited. He's just a peripheral member of the Netherworld, lurking among the forces to find good candidates for the Netherworld, Hu Ka said. Gu Ding is one of them, but he's still being tested. Does he have the strength to kill indigenous people? Zichun asked. Hu Ka shook his head and said, "Not yet, but after he passes the test, the Netherworld will increase his combat power." Oh? Zichun was a little surprised, but at the same time, he was more curious about the Netherworld. If you want to exchange resources, sir, it's better to go to the Netherworld. There are enough resources there, and the price is very fair. Isn't the Netherworld very mysterious? That's for outsiders. Sir, you've killed so many indigenous people today, so you're no longer an outsider. Sir, your combat power is very strong. If you want to join the Netherworld, I believe your combat power will become even stronger. At this moment, Zichun was naturally tempted. The Netherworld specialized in fighting against indigenous people and had always had a good reputation. If he really joined the Netherworld, he would not have to run away like this. Where's the Netherworld? Zichun asked. Sir, this is the Netherworld token. There's a map in it. When you reach the end of the map, you just need to activate the Netherworld token and you'll automatically arrive at the Netherworld's base. Huka respectfully handed over a black token. If anyone asks, sir, just say that this is Huka's token. Okay. Zichun took the token and nodded. I'll take my leave. Huka turned around and was about to leave. You just said that there are a lot of resources in the Netherworld? Zichun asked. Yes, Huka said. That's good. Looking at Zichun's disappearing figure, Huka seemed to have thought of something. He was even more shocked and excited at the same time. To be able to introduce such an expert to the Netherworld, he believed that he would receive a lot of benefits later. He might even be rewarded with the power of the Netherworld in advance. After receiving the token, Zichun injected his energy into it and found that a map appeared. The map was very large, and he was currently at a certain point. He did not follow the designated route, but turned back the way he came. He got this token because he was curious about the Netherworld. The second reason was that he wanted to exchange for some resources. However, he had already taken out all the resources he had. Now, he only had the resources of the 10 indigenous people. Even if he added them up, it should not be much. When he turned back the way he came, Zichun, who did not deliberately hide his tracks, met the indigenous people again. The two sides inevitably fought. During the battle, Zichun found that there were 5 people on the other side, but in fact, there were 5 people hiding in the dark. Under the cooperation of the 10 people, they could already pose a great threat to Zichun because the power of his thunder body was not endless. However, he also had a backup plan. The appearance of the spirit-devouring king grass could often bring unexpected results. After killing all the way and obtaining a lot of resources, Zichun knew that it was time for him to leave. None of the indigenous people were fools. At this moment, he had already killed dozens of people. In a situation where they knew that they could not kill him, even if they had more people, they would naturally send more powerful existences. Now, Zichun did not have the confidence to deal with the indigenous people of King Grade 2, so it was time to go to the Netherworld to exchange for resources. After telling the others, they naturally did not have any objections. Next, Zichun used the teleportation realm and left the area completely. Then, he followed the guidance of the Netherworld token and walked in the designated direction. When he reached the end of the route, Zichun injected his energy into the Netherworld token. The Netherworld token released a light that enveloped Zichun's body. In the next moment, Zichun's body disappeared. The Netherworld token had a teleportation function that could only be activated when one arrived at a certain location. When he reappeared, Zichun was in a huge space. There was a teleportation array every few hundred feet. Just as Zichun was sizing up his surroundings, several second-grade King Realm God Kings flew over from afar. Who are you? Chapter 3025. Zichun looked at these second grades of the King Realm. With a flash of brilliance in his hand, a Netherworld token appeared. This is the Netherworld token. How did you get it? Looking at the Netherworld token in Zichun's hand, the leader of the King Realm said in an unfriendly tone, "Of course, someone gave it to me. Did I steal it?" The other party's tone made Zichun a little dissatisfied. Naturally, he emphasized his tone. Who would give you this first-grade Netherworld token? The King Realm leader obviously did not believe him. Someone named Huka. Zichun said, Huka? Is he out of his mind? How could he give you a... Before the King Realm leader could finish his words, Zichun's aura suddenly burst out. It was the power of the thunder body, which was very violent. When the power of the thunder body erupted, there was also a powerful wave raging. With the appearance of this wave, the second grades of the King Realm around were shaken off one after another. The change here attracted the attention of many people in the distance. After perceiving Zichen's aura, everyone's face changed. You? The leader of the second grades of the King realm who had been shaken off looked at Zichen in shock. What's the matter? A cold voice came from behind, and a third stage king flew over. Looking at the incoming King realm leader, Zichen's eyes flashed with a touch of surprise. He had seen him before. It was Yu Ming, who had cheered them up when they first came to this world. Your Excellency, he has the Netherworld token. The second grades of the King realm who had been shaken off stood up awkwardly and said, Oh. The King realm leader, who Zichen had seen before, noticed the change in Zichen's eyes and said, Do you know me? A few months ago, when I first came to this area, I saw you. Zichen said. The King realm leader's expression changed slightly. He asked, Why did Huka give you the Netherworld token? He said that you can exchange resources for Supreme Crystal here. Upon hearing Zichen's words, Wang Sanpin's expression changed again. He said, You are that Wang Yiping who has been rumored to have killed several dozen Spiritas? Zichen said, tacitly agreeing, It really is you. The faces of the second-grade kings around immediately changed. It was impossible for the underworld's influence not to know that such a big thing had happened in this region. They just felt that it was extremely inconceivable, even if someone had already confirmed it. It was already shocking enough that Wang Yiping could fight against the Aboriginals, but it was even more unbelievable that he could kill dozens of them. We were looking for you everywhere. I didn't expect you to come here of your own accord. This Wang Sanpin said, Oh, my name is Diluo. Zichen nodded. The surrounding god kings who had heard the news all looked at Zichen in shock. They found this unbelievable. Come with me. You are now a celebrity in the Netherworld. Diluo led Zichen forward. Along the way, everyone's gaze fell on Zichen. Some were curious, but most were shocked. No one questioned him. In the past few days, the Spiritas had suffered heavy losses. It was as if they had all gone mad. This news could not be false. However, they still could not believe that Wang Yiping could kill so many Aboriginals. Perhaps the second-grade kings who had sensed Zichen's aura knew that in that instant, they felt the threat of death. Looking at the god kings they met along the way, Zichen said, I thought that there would be very few people in the Netherworld. There are indeed very few people in the Netherworld. Strictly speaking, these people are not from the Netherworld. They are just reserves, Diluo said. Only those who have passed the test and mastered the power of the Netherworld are true members of the Netherworld. There are less than 100 of them right now. What exactly is the power of the Netherworld? Zichen asked. You have fought with the Aboriginals before. You should know that they are strong because they have a unique power of rules. They can suppress us and increase their battle prowess. The power of the Netherworld can temporarily alleviate the pressure of this rule. As their cultivation level increases, their battle prowess will naturally increase as well. Diluo said, When we lost all hope of awakening, the power of the Netherworld became the only power we had to fight against the Aboriginals. Hope of awakening? Zichen asked curiously, What is that? When you see the Lord, he will naturally tell you. Speaking of the Lord, Diluo's expression became serious. If it were not for the Lord, we would have been suppressed even more. We would not have been able to turn things around. Zichen nodded. He agreed with this because the Netherworld had always been fighting against the Aboriginals. Under Diluo's lead, Zichen met the Lord. It was a middle-aged man wearing a long black robe. His aura was steady. Although he did not deliberately release it, Zichen could still feel how powerful he was. Lord, this is Zichen. He is the one who has caused the soul race to suffer great losses recently. After Diluo brought Zichen here, he turned and left. Zichen, welcome. The middle-aged man looked at Zichen with a kind smile on his face. Zichen greets the Lord. Zichen clasped his hands. When we heard about you, we were very surprised. If I were not certain that all the awakening altars in this world were destroyed by the Aboriginals, I would have thought that you had awakened that power, the middle-aged man said. What kind of power? Zichen asked. Diluo had mentioned it before, but he did not give a clear answer. A power that should have belonged to us. It is also the power that we should have after coming to this world. We need to rely on an ancient altar to awaken. Unfortunately, Those awakening altars were all destroyed by the aboriginals. The middle-aged man's eyes showed a trace of pity. If the altars were still there, we, who had awakened our power, would not be weaker than the aboriginals. We might even be stronger. Zichen's eyes showed a trace of shock. They had guessed it before, but now that their guesses were true, there was no hope. There is not a single altar? Zichen asked unwillingly. Could there be one that we did not discover? The middle-aged man knew what Zichen was thinking. Over the years, he had told this to many netherworld beings. When they first heard about it, they were like Zichen. After all, nothing was absolute. More and more God race beings are coming. The lowest level of the God King's celestial realm is almost completely occupied by us. If there were altars, they would have been discovered long ago. The middle-aged man continued, moreover, the aboriginals were once the guardians who guarded the altars for us, preventing them from being destroyed by the heavenly beasts. When Zichen heard this, he let out a sigh of disappointment. If they were the guardians, they would know the number of altars. If they wanted to destroy them, they would not leave a single one behind. He did not expect it to be like this. Chapter 30:26. Zichen was not surprised that the other party was asking about the source of his power. He said, I obtained this power by accident. Can you be more specific? The middle-aged man looked at Zichen and said, Don't misunderstand. I don't have any ill intentions. I just want to do more for the gods in this world. I don't want them to continue being oppressed. With one more powerful power, there will naturally be more choices. I'm not a true god. My power is lightning. In the Divine King's heavenly path, we discovered a prehistoric ruin. I inadvertently obtained another type of lightning power. This lightning power is very strong, much stronger than my previous lightning power. It's just that it can't last forever. Zichen thought for a moment and said, This kind of power will be used up in a short period of time. Just as I finished using it and felt regretful, I discovered that something strange had happened to my power. Zichen was not telling the truth. However, this was not completely a lie. At most, it was a white lie. This was because his cultivation technique could not be imparted. If possible, he would have imparted it to the Thunder and his team. Looking at the middle-aged man's regretful expression, Zichen said, There's another person in my team who uses the power of lightning. I tried to give him some mutated energy to see if it could change his power, but it didn't work. As expected, it seems like this world can't tolerate the appearance of stronger powers. The middle-aged man sighed. He did not suspect that Zichen was lying. Has this situation been going on for a long time? Zichen asked. It's been many years. If that's the case, why don't the heavenly gods interfere? After all, this is a place built by the heavenly gods. I believe they have absolute power, right? I'm not too sure about that. It's said that after this world was built, there was a level restriction. The heavenly gods are too strong. If they come here, they will cause this world to collapse. When the other party said this, Zichen was even more puzzled. If the heavenly gods knew that there was a problem here, why did they let Ichien come here? Could it be that the pagoda battle god did not know that the situation here had changed? Perhaps there was some other secret behind this? What's the netherworld power? Zichen asked. Back then, when I was roaming this world, I inadvertently obtained a power stone. It was a power that could restrain the natural order. I called it the power of the netherworld, and from there, I created the netherworld force. All those who have succeeded in obtaining the power of the netherworld can ignore the suppression of the natives' rules. The middle-aged man asked, Are you here for the netherworld energy? Zichen shook his head and said, I'm here to see what's going on with netherworld. At the same time, I want to exchange my resources for Supreme Crystal. How many resources do you have? The middle-aged man asked with a smile. Not much. I've already exchanged half of it last time. It was also at that time that I met a second-grade king, Huka. He gave me a netherworld token and asked me to come here to take a look. Looking at Huka's expectant look, it was obvious that he would be rewarded after coming here. Zichen didn't mind saying the other party's name. Next, Zichen took out the resources that he had sorted out and handed them to the middle-aged man. After the middle-aged man took the resources and looked at them, he was very surprised. These resources will be exchanged for supreme crystal of the same value. I'll give them to you later. After that, he looked at Zichun and said, I wonder if you're interested in the power of the netherworld? Me? Zichun was stunned. That's right. The power of the netherworld is a special kind of power. It can ignore the suppression of the natural order and doesn't repel the power of the god race here. If you're lucky, you might have these two kinds of energy, the middle-aged man said with a smile. Zichun was very tempted when he heard this. If that was really the case, it would be great. Can I? Zichun's face revealed a look of anticipation. The prerequisite for obtaining the power of the netherworld is that you don't associate with the natives. Then, you have to be strong enough. You have both of these points, so you can naturally do it. Thank you very much. Zichun cupped his fists and thanked him. Come with me. The man, who had the highest cultivation level and the highest authority in the netherworld, led Zichun out of the room and walked into the distance. When the people along the way saw this scene, their faces revealed a look of surprise. They did not understand why the man would lower himself to personally entertain Wang Yiping. After listening to the people around them tell them about Wang Yiping's origin and identity, a look of shock appeared on their surprised faces. It turned out that this was the man who had been the talk of the town recently. He was really amazing. Under the guidance of the middle-aged man, Zichun walked into the depths of the netherworld's forces. During this time, he met many guards. The number of people in the netherworld was very small. The real netherworld was a force of its own. Under their jurisdiction, there were people who mined mines and hunted heavenly beasts. There were all kinds of people. The resources here are also exchanged in the city? Zichun suddenly thought of this question as he walked forward and asked curiously. The middle-aged man smiled and said, No, the natives are very against us. We have other channels for our resources. Zichun nodded. Apparently, he understood the man's meaning. In this world, there was never an absolute enemy. There were only absolute benefits. He believed that there were such existences among the natives. As long as the benefits were enough, it was not a big deal to ally with the netherworld. The two of them walked to the place where several King third-grade guards were guarding. From the aura released from their bodies, Zichun felt threatened. Obviously, they were all from the netherworld. Sir. With the arrival of the two, these people cupped their fists and bowed. The middle-aged man nodded and said, Open the door. One of the third-grade kings turned around and pushed open the door behind him. The other third-grade kings were sizing up Zichun with curiosity. Wang Yiping could kill first-grade natives, and he killed a group of them at once. How was this possible? The door slowly opened. A strong aura was released from the front, blowing Zichun's black hair. He saw space. The space was black, and he could not see what was inside. I won't go in with you, the middle-aged man said. Whether you can get the power of the netherworld depends on whether you are fated. Zichun nodded. After adjusting his emotions, he walked forward. He entered the open door and stepped into a space. The originally dark space was now lit up. The light was very faint, but it was enough for him to see things around him. A small path extended forward until it reached the end. At the end of the path, there was a huge rock that emitted a black light. As he approached, Zichun felt that the air was filled with a strong oppressive force. The pressure was constantly increasing. After only walking half the distance, the pressure made Zichun feel a little uncomfortable. He frowned and lightning flashed out of his body. Chapter 30:27. Zichun's body flashed with lightning, illuminating the surroundings. The stone in front of him that contained the power of the netherworld also lit up. It was a black light that looked very pure and also enveloped the surroundings. The power of lightning and the power of the netherworld seemed to have formed some kind of resistance at this moment, each occupying half of the space. The pressure from before had been swept away, but there was a feeling in the air that Zichun could not describe. He took a deep breath and continued to walk forward. With every step he took, the lightning on his body burned brighter, and the light on the stone that contained the power of the netherworld faded a little. At first, Zichun walked very easily, but as he walked forward, it became more and more difficult. Moreover, in his heart, there was a strong feeling, just like when he fought with Yushiyu on the Divine King's path. It seemed that this power called the Netherworld was a natural counter to the lightning body. Finally, Zichun walked in front of the Netherworld stone. The Netherworld stone that was originally releasing a strong light had now completely withdrawn its light and returned to its previous appearance. A transparent light barrier that could only be seen when he walked closer separated Zichun from the Netherworld stone. How can I obtain the power inside? Zichun pondered for a moment, then closed his eyes and released his soul power to begin to sense. A moment later, he sensed the energy of the Netherworld stone. It was a very terrifying energy, like a giant beast. At this moment, Zichun was like an ant in front of the giant beast. He raised his head to look at the giant beast, but he could not even see its full appearance. If this was the power of the Netherworld, how could he obtain it? Soon, Zichun realized how ridiculous his idea was. At the same time, he also knew what the so-called power of the Netherworld was. He saw a light fly out of the giant beast's body, and that light landed on his body. This light was a power, the power of the Netherworld. It was obviously impossible to obtain the power of this giant beast. He had only obtained a trace of the giant beast's power. Just as Zichun felt relieved, a bolt of lightning suddenly appeared in his body. The thunderbolt landed on the black energy and instantly shattered it. Faintly, Zichun seemed to hear a cry of agony from the shattered black energy. What's going on? Zichun checked his body and found no abnormalities. The lightning that had appeared earlier had already disappeared. The giant beast in front of him didn't show any emotion. Zichun willed it again, and a similar black energy flew out from the gigantic beast. This time, Zichun could clearly sense that this energy was very strong. It was Netherworld energy. The Netherworld energy once again landed on his body. However, just as it entered his body, Zichun's lightning body was automatically activated. Another bolt of lightning appeared and came into contact with the Netherworld energy. In the next moment, the Netherworld energy shattered, and the previous scream rang out once again. This time, it was much clearer. Zichun still didn't understand what was going on. The giant beast in front of him seemed to be in a deep sleep and didn't care about Zichun's disrespectful behavior. With a thought, another bolt of energy arrived. Then, with another thought, he found that he could only obtain one bolt of energy each time. Unsurprisingly, this bolt of energy was shattered by the lightning body's power. After several attempts, Zichun had to admit that he couldn't obtain the Netherworld energy. Moreover, this Netherworld energy seemed to have a mind of its own. Every time it was shattered by the lightning body's power, there would be a scream. Zichun heard this very clearly. As for why this was, Zichun didn't know. He looked up at the giant beast, but it still didn't move. Although the Netherworld energy was strange, it was very powerful. Zichun couldn't help but feel a little unwilling to give up. At this moment, his spiritual thoughts suddenly stirred as he thought of a possibility. With a thought, his clone appeared at the side. The clone existed independently and didn't have the lightning body. Could it have the Netherworld energy? With a thought from the clone, a bolt of Netherworld energy appeared and flew directly toward the clone. The power landed on the doppelganger. Then, it revolved around the doppelganger before finally entering its body. During this time, Zichun's lightning body's power was restless, but it didn't take the initiative to attack. While Zichun was happy that his clone had obtained the Netherworld energy, he didn't let his guard down. Instead, he let his clone carefully sense this power. The Netherworld energy entered his body and merged with the God Clan's energy. The two sides showed signs of merging. Is it merging? Zichun looked at the clone and asked. He couldn't see the changes in the clone's body and could only guess through the clone's perception. It looks very similar, but it's not really merging. The clone thought for a moment and said, "It's more like devouring." Devouring? Zichun was surprised. Yes, my divine power is flowing away. This power is growing. Can you sense something unusual? I can't sense it. This power is like an evolved version of divine power. I can control it at will. Just as the two of them were talking, a second bolt of Netherworld energy rushed out of the giant beast and entered the clone's body. What's going on? Zichun asked. I'm not sure. It seems to have checked my body and felt that my body can contain more power. The clone's answer was obviously uncertain. Did it become stronger? Yes. Zichen looked at the giant beast that was still sleeping and said, "Wait a moment." He placed his hand on the clone, and the restless lightning body directly entered the clone's body. The next moment, the lightning body flowed through the clone's body. The clone's expression began to distort because of the pain. An even more shrill scream sounded. The netherworld energy in the clone's body was torn apart by the lightning body. When the netherworld energy had completely disappeared, the power of the lightning physique had returned to him. The clone was very weak at this moment. "How do you feel?" Zichen asked again. "It consumed a lot of energy, and it was very painful just now," the clone said. Clearly, this netherworld energy was very strange. "What do you think?" Zichen asked. "It can temporarily make us stronger. Naturally, it's a good thing." The clone thought for a moment and said, "Even if there's something strange, the lightning body's power can suppress it." Then, the clone looked up at the giant beast. "Maybe it's looking for an inheritor." Zichen said, "It's still dangerous." The clone said, "For us, danger is everywhere, isn't it?" Although Zichen and the clone were the same person, the clone had an independent soul and its own way of thinking. "It's up to you," Zichen finally said. Clearly, he wanted the clone to make the choice. The clone closed its eyes and began to absorb the netherworld energy without hesitation. Stream after stream of netherworld energy entered the clone's body. Chapter 30:28. Zichen gave the choice to his doppelganger, and the doppelganger chose to accept the netherworld energy without hesitation. Streaks of netherworld energy entered the doppelganger's body, and then it devoured the divine power, turning all its power into netherworld energy. "How do you feel?" Sensing the change in the doppelganger's aura, Zichen asked. "I feel stronger and stronger. Other than that, I don't feel any discomfort." The doppelganger closed its eyes and said, "This is equivalent to a new power, and I can control it as I wish." Zichen nodded, feeling slightly relieved. The strongest middle-aged man in the netherworld had been waiting outside without any change in his expression. Beside him, the rank 3 netherworld warriors stood upright, looking slightly anxious. As time passed, a rank 3 king said, "Could there be a problem? Why hasn't it come out after so long?" They all had experience in obtaining netherworld energy. Although there would be some tests in between, it definitely wouldn't take so long. Under normal circumstances, those who took this long were all failures. The middle-aged man shook his head and said, "It's okay, wait a little longer." Zichen's consciousness returned, and he found himself still standing in front of the netherworld stone, separated by the transparent light shield. The light on the netherworld stone was still very faint, and he couldn't see any abnormalities. The enormous nether behemoth from before seemed to have been an illusion. Zichen turned his head and saw the doppelganger standing beside him. At this moment, the doppelganger also opened its eyes. "How is it?" Zichen asked. "It feels good, like I've been reborn." The doppelganger clenched its fist, and black power appeared from its body. It was netherworld energy, and it was very powerful. He gently flicked his finger, and a power flew forward. Zichen also raised his hand and pointed, and a power of thunder body appeared. The power of thunder body hit the netherworld energy, and in the next moment, the netherworld energy was destroyed. However, this time, Zichen didn't hear the scream. Zichen nodded at the doppelganger, and the doppelganger disappeared. Zichen, who had originally planned to let others try to refine the netherworld energy, naturally wouldn't let them take the risk after this happened. Zichen turned around and walked out. Outside the door, he saw the Lord who was still waiting. He said, "Sorry, it took a while." The middle-aged man smiled and said, "Time is not important. Did you get that kind of power?" Zichen slowly shook his head and said, "I didn't get it. It seems to counter my previous power. However, I have a clone who obtained this power." "Oh, what realm is that clone of yours at?" asked the slightly disappointed middle-aged man curiously. Wang Yiping. As soon as Zichen finished speaking, gasps of surprise sounded from behind him. It was rare for Wang Yiping to be able to obtain the power of the netherworld. Their expressions were full of anticipation, but Zichen had no intention of letting his doppelganger appear. Currently, his clone was in his world, discussing matters related to the netherworld energy with everyone. May I ask, my lord, how should the netherworld energy grow in the future? Zichen asked as they were leaving. There's no need to deliberately grow it. The netherworld energy will grow as the realm increases. The higher the realm, the stronger the netherworld energy will be, and the suppression from the natives will be smaller. The middle-aged man said, however, because of their physique or other reasons, the amount of netherworld energy obtained by each person is different. Only those who obtain 10% or more can become a true netherworld energy. 10% or more. Zichen was very puzzled and asked, what does that mean? The middle-aged man said, when you obtain the netherworld energy, your own energy will be transformed. When the transformation reaches 10% of your total energy, you will have the strength to face the natives and qualify to become a true netherworld energy. Otherwise, you won't. So that's how it is. Compared to this 10%, there should be other levels, right? Zichen asked. The middle-aged man looked at Zichen meaningfully and said, above 10%, there are other levels, from 20% to 90%. The more you transform, the stronger your combat power. If you transform more than 70% of your energy, you will have the combat power to fight against those of the same level. Zichen's face revealed a hint of surprise and said, if the conversion rate of a third-grade king is as high as 70%, you can deal with the natives of the third-grade king? That's right. But first, someone has to reach 70%. Over the years, there have been very few who have surpassed 30%, let alone 70%. This is also why the netherworld energy here is almost all third-grade king. Zichen nodded and said with some regret, it's a pity that I can't use such power. The middle-aged man smiled and said, there's no pity. Your mutated power is not weaker than the netherworld energy at all. At this moment, someone brought over a divine ring. The Lord took the divine ring and handed it to Zichen, saying, this is the supreme crystal you deserve this time. Zichen thanked him and took it. Without looking at it, he asked directly, what do I need to do for the netherworld energy? The Lord smiled and said, the netherworld energy doesn't need any netherworld energy to return. You can keep the netherworld token. When you need resources, just use the netherworld token and come back. Okay. Zichen nodded. He didn't stay here for long and left after bidding farewell to the Lord. In Zichen's world, everyone surrounded the doppelganger and looked at it curiously. Black light flowed on the doppelganger's body. This was pure black, without any trace of divine light. According to the level that the middle-aged man had mentioned, the doppelganger's conversion rate should be higher than the maximum 90%. It was a complete transformation. Previously, the doppelganger had told everyone about the abnormality of this energy, but no one could say whether this situation would be good or bad in the future. But for now, this situation was naturally very good. This was because the team needed powerful combat strength, and the doppelganger that had been transformed from energy undoubtedly had the same combat strength as the real body. This was naturally a good thing. Of course, the better thing was that Zichen had exchanged for a lot of supreme crystal. With the help of the supreme crystal to comprehend the king-grade ancestral steel's true meaning, everyone's comprehension speed would be faster. In a wasteland, a team of natives was moving forward. Unlike the previous team of 10 people, this team was made up of 3 people. Although there were only 3 people, they were all second-stage kings. Existences at this level were already very strong in this area. Ao Meng, haven't you noticed? While moving forward, a second-stage king man asked. The second-stage king named Ao Meng said, from the message sent by the spirit eagle, the opponent's aura seems to have disappeared from this area. Disappeared? Has he been killed? The second-stage king asked. Ao Meng shook his head and said, impossible. There are only 3 of us here. Chapter 3029. Zichen stepped into the transmission array and left. At this time, he was thinking about awakening altars. He believed that the awakening altars in this world might have been destroyed by the natives, but he did not believe that there were no other ways to awaken or to obtain greater power. For example, the power of the underworld in this world. Why was he so confident? It was because of I Chien and the Tower Battle God. With Sky God's strength and methods, it was not difficult for him to find out what was wrong with this world. Since he had left behind a token before he left, Zichen did not believe that Sky God did not understand this world before he left. given the special care that Sky God had for Ichien. But he still gave him the token. Clearly, there was a turning point. But where was this turning point? Zichen frowned and walked forward aimlessly. He did not notice that a black dot appeared in the sky above his head. It was a spirit eagle. Its pair of eagle eyes stared at Zichen below and circled around him once before flying off into the distance. Could it be that the natives are still secretly hiding awakening altars? It was not impossible. After all, there were still natives working with the underworld. There might be awakening altars that had not been destroyed. He was considering whether to find Kongimo and see if the craftsman had any. As soon as this idea appeared, Zichen dismissed it. Kongimo had just arrived and did not have a solid foundation. He would not know about such core matters. Moreover, the craftsman's attitude toward them was not good. Even if they did, they would not give it to him. Next, Zichen was a little worried because he did not know where to go. Should he find the natives again and hunt them? It seemed that this was the only way for them to grow quickly. Just as Zichen was about to make up his mind, a powerful aura suddenly came from the horizon. Sensing this aura, his expression changed and he cried out, "King Level 2. After a series of killings, the Aboriginals finally sent more powerful experts. Zichen opened his world and was about to escape. He did not want to fight against a rank 2. Moreover, with his world, he did not need to face such danger. Wong. His figure disappeared and appeared hundreds of feet away in the next moment. When he appeared, his expression changed as he looked up at the sky. A domain appeared from within, and an extremely powerful aura filled the surroundings. This is the craftsman's domain? Zichen's expression changed. Kongimo had been protecting them ever since they had come here from the Divine King's path, so he was naturally very familiar with the craftsman's domain. Why don't you keep running? A mocking laugh sounded as a man with a heavy hammer in his hand walked over from the distance. He was from the craftsman, so this was his domain. The other two could no longer be seen. It was unknown if they were outside the domain. Zichen stared at him coldly. The man played with the heavy hammer in his hand and said, "Your body is not bad. After I kill you, I'll refine you into a puppet." When he finished speaking, 2 streaks of light flew out from his body. Those were 2 people, only they looked lifeless, without any signs of life. They held sharp weapons in their hands and rushed towards Zichen. A bright light flashed in Zichen's hand, and a long saber appeared. Shua. He rushed towards the 2 people. Clang, clang. As the weapons clashed, clanging sounds rang out continuously. Wave after wave of shockwaves spread out. These 2 people did not look like humans, and their battle strength was not weak. However, their attacks were not too powerful, and the suppression from the laws was not too strong either. The battle continued, and the craftsman native looked at the 3 people fighting with a look of disdain. He shook his head and said, "This is too boring. Could it be that the rumors were false?" He was referring to how Zichen was too weak, and how he could not kill the 2 lowest-grade puppets. In the next moment, his expression slightly changed as a look of surprise appeared in his eyes. A bright light appeared in front of him, and it sounded like thunder. Countless lightning snakes rampaged about, causing his domain to slightly tremble. When the light disappeared, his 2 puppets had been cut in half and fell to the ground. Zichen's body flickered with lightning as he used the lightning constitution that could destroy enemies. "This is interesting." The craftsman laughed and rushed forwards. He raised his heavy hammer, which could be used to refine weapons, and a black energy flowed around it. The heavy hammer instantly enlarged and smashed down like a mountain, causing a sharp howl to sound out. Zichen looked up and sensed this terrifying aura, and his expression became serious. Lightning flashed as he unsheathed his long saber. The unsheathed saber was filled with boundless lightning constitution's power, and the area covered by the black light became brighter as the saber rose into the air. Tempering. A roar sounded out from the sky as the heavy hammer descended, and the saber light was instantly shattered. The heavy hammer continued to descend, and Zichen's defenses were shattered. The battle armor that Kong Hongya had spent a lot of effort to refine for him also exploded. A massive explosion sounded out as the battle armor shattered, and Zichen's body flew backwards. As he flew backwards, a trace of blood leaked out of his lips. His face was pale, and his eyes were filled with shock. The destruction of his battle armor had allowed him to block the opponent's attack. The difference in strength between a Grade 1 native and a Grade 2 native was simply too great, and Zichun could clearly feel the pressure. "You actually didn't die? This is interesting. I wonder if you have any more battle armor to block my second attack." The craftsman native coldly laughed and once again stepped forwards, unleashing the same attack. This was a move that they had used to refine weapons. This kind of attack could even deform the toughest material, let alone a fragile human body. This was the most basic and simple move, but it was also the most terrifying because it contained laws. The instant the heavy hammer descended, Zichun felt the space around him being suppressed. Even with the heavenly thunder wings, he could not dodge. At this moment, he was like a tough piece of material that could not dodge the weapon refiner's attack at all. Since he could not dodge, then he would fight. He roared as his lightning constitution exploded out once again. He clenched his right hand into a fist and punched towards the sky. This fist was very small, but it was very bright. The power of his lightning constitution had gathered at a single point. Explode. The instant the fist and the heavy hammer collided, the power contained within the lightning constitution exploded out. The power of the lightning constitution was already berserk, and now that it was combined with the explosive thunder fist, its power was maximized. Rumbling sounds filled the heavens and earth as boundless lightning covered the surroundings. A powerful aura continuously surged out. Under the powerful shockwaves, Zichun's body continuously retreated. Light continuously flowed around his body, dispelling the destructive power around him. Across from him, the craftsman race's second-rank king was sent flying. A set of battle armor appeared on his body, dispelling the destructive power. At the same time, his face became pale. Zichun retreated dozens of feet, while his opponent retreated thousands of feet. Chapter 30. Wang Erpin from the craftsman race coughed up blood. His originally mocking eyes were now filled with shock. What kind of attack is this? Wang Erpin's attack contained the great path of nature, which was also the laws of nature. He could treat everything as an object to refine. Coupled with the absolute suppression of his realm, the power of this attack could be imagined. It was like when he was refining and found a low-grade material in front of him that was not worth mentioning. If he was a little more serious, this material would be wasted. Right now, Zichun was like that piece of low-grade material. However, under the circumstances where he was serious, not only did he not fail to refine it, he even suffered a backlash and was injured. Wang Erpin from the craftsman race looked at Zichun in disbelief. He could not accept that he was injured by the backlash. However, if he knew that Zichun's thunder body was not a power of this world, and that the thunder explosion was a technique that matched the thunder body, he seemed to understand why Zichun's attack was so powerful. Wang Erpin's attack belonged to the great path of nature, but it was still within the scope of the world's laws. However, Zichun's attack did not need to be controlled. It was a power that surpassed the laws and did not need to be controlled by the laws. Wang Erpin from the craftsman race shouted angrily. He was not convinced and stepped forward again. The giant hammer in his hand released a strong light again. Zichun naturally used the thunder explosion. Facing an opponent of this level, the only thing he could resist was the thunder explosion. There was a huge explosion. The power of the thunder explosion completely exploded. The scattered power of thunder with destructive fluctuations enveloped the body of the craftsman race Wang Erpin. His body flew backward again. Small lightning arcs flashed on the surface of his armor. Puff! After stabilizing his body, he coughed up a mouthful of blood. His face became even paler. He had lost. This time, he had to admit it. A Wang Erpin with the suppression of the laws was no match for a God Race member like Wang Erpin. One had to know that even those of the Netherworld realm could restrain them. Swoosh! With a flash of light, two more people appeared. They were the two Wang Erpin from before. One of them was from the Spiritas, while the other was from the soldier race. The two of them arrived next to the second-grade craftsman king. The second-grade Spiritas king, Aoming, asked, "How is it?" "He is indeed very strong. If we allow him to continue living, He will definitely become a disaster for us in the future. The craftsman king wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth as he spoke. The existence from the bin race nodded. That's right, we definitely can't let him live. With that, the warrior of the soldier tribe rushed towards Zichun. As he rushed forward, a beam of light appeared in his hand, which turned into a long sword. The soldier race would awaken a natal weapon when they were born. Their future strength was closely related to this natal weapon. The moment the long sword appeared, a sharp aura spread out in all directions in this domain. The soldier held his sword and slashed down. A waterfall appeared in the domain, and the sword light followed the momentum. Zichun unsheathed his saber. With a clang, the sword light that shot out shattered, and Zichun's body flew far away. A cold smile appeared at the corner of the soldier race's king's mouth, but in an instant, the smile froze. A black hole appeared beside him, and from the black hole, a fist surrounded by black light appeared. It was extremely powerful and landed on the soldier race's king's body. The black light exploded in front of the soldier race's king, enveloping his body. This sudden attack caused him to cough up blood and fly backward. In the distance, the two people looked ahead in shock. The clone walked out of the void. Black light surrounded his body, and a terrifying aura was released from his body. The divine power of the past had turned into the power of the underworld at this moment. Underworld. Seeing the clone covered in black light, the two people behind him cried out in surprise. Swoosh! The clone rushed forward and used the divine race's fleet footstep. Although his energy had changed, his combat skills were not affected. Leaving behind afterimages, the clone arrived in front of the soldier race's king. The soldier race's king shouted and stabbed forward with his long sword. This sword was extremely sharp. The sword light contained the power of rules, and it sealed the clone's body. The power of the underworld on the clone's body surged, and the suppression of rules was broken in an instant. He dodged slightly and dodged the sword. Then, he punched out again. Boom! The fist light exploded, and the black energy exploded. The soldier race's king coughed up blood and flew backward again. Seeing this, the two people behind him were shocked, and they rushed forward without hesitation. Zichun and his doppelganger also joined forces and rushed forward. The thunder body was very powerful, but it consumed a lot of energy in a battle, so it could not last long. Moreover, their realms were one level lower, so Zichun could barely deal with one of them. As for the other two, he left them to his clone. The power of the underworld in the clone's body was abundant, and with the help of various divine skills, it was naturally very powerful. However, the natives were not weak either, and they had the advantage in terms of rules. A black fist light was smashed by the hammer of the king race's king. After destroying the fist light, he did not slow down and smashed on the clone's body. The clone clenched his fists and crossed them in front of his body. The black energy formed a defense. Accompanied by the explosion of energy, the clone's body flew backward. As he retreated, a sharp cry rang out as a spirit eagle flew over from the side, its sharp claws swiping at the doppelganger. Whoosh! The clone's body flew far away, and his hands quickly formed a seal. Boom! The void suddenly shook, and a pitch-black palm fell from the sky. This was the god-slaying palm, a heavenly god skill. The palm print hit the spiritual eagle and exploded. The spiritual eagle fell down, and its aura weakened. The craftsman race's king race rushed forward again. The other party was very difficult to deal with, and he had armor. As for the injured soldier race's king race, the clone used the 9 Extremes weapon to fight. The two sides were evenly matched, and there was no deliberate suppression. Go to hell. The soldier race's king race's eyes flashed with killing intent. The weapon in front of him suddenly exploded with a strong light. The long sword in his hand suddenly split into 3. They fell from the sky and slashed at Zichun. This sword was very powerful. Zichun could not use his weapon, so he immediately put it away and punched. It was still the thunder explosion. This was his most powerful attack. The power of thunder exploded in the air, enveloping the 3 swords. Zichun's body was sent flying by this energy. The soldier race's king race was also sent flying, coughing up blood. Whoosh! Zichun, who was sent flying, unfolded the heavenly thunder wings on his back. He instantly increased his speed to the maximum. At the same time, he also used the last bit of thunder power in his body. As the thunder power exploded, the craftsman race's domain rumbled. At the same time, a flash of lightning appeared. Before the soldier race's king race could stabilize his body, Zichun had already arrived beside him, unsheathing the long sword in his hand. The blade was infused with the last bit of thunder power, and it swept forward. A natural rule light appeared in front of the blade and blocked it. Chapter 30-31. The rule light that appeared naturally couldn't block the power of the thunder body. It shattered with a bang, and blood splattered in front of him. The head of the second-grade king of the soldier clan flew high into the air. The light around his body dissipated, and his body fell to the ground. As for the long sword in his hand, which had become one with his life, it immediately shattered and turned into pure energy. Swish! The spirit-devouring king grass appeared and pierced through the dead second-grade king's body. It began to devour the energy in his body. After killing one person, Zichun's energy had reached its limit. He didn't continue to attack. He was very glad that he went to the netherworld and obtained the power of the netherworld. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to survive this crisis. A stone saber appeared in the doppelganger's hand. With the power of the netherworld enveloping his body, he rushed toward the spirit eagle. There was a loud tremor, and several energy fluctuations spread out. The spirit eagle's body was split into two by the stone saber. It turned into specks of light and scattered into the world. The black light on the doppelganger's body was also scattered. His chest caved in, and he coughed up blood and flew backward. His combat power was not much different from his real body. The only thing he relied on was that his real body was more powerful. At this moment, his real body had no power. He could only risk his life to kill the two people in front of him. Without the spirit eagle, the Soul Clan was like half dead. His aura weakened rapidly, and his combat power was reduced by 80%. The doppelganger rushed forward again. Surrounded by black light, he displayed the fleet-foot stride to the extreme. The second-grade king of the Soul Clan retreated. A set of armor appeared on his body. The armor exuded a heavy aura and propped up a defensive light. The doppelganger approached, and the stone saber swept across the armor. A clean and smooth cut was made, and the armor was split in the middle. At this moment, whether it was because of the sharpness of the stone saber or the power of the netherworld, the armor was cut in two and fell from the body of the second-grade king of the Soul Clan. The second-grade king of the Soul Clan retreated in horror. He had spent a lot of money to get the armor from the craftsman. He had never used it before. He didn't expect that it would be broken in one blow when he used it for the first time. At this moment, he felt a dangerous aura behind him. However, before he could turn around to check where the danger came from, the special protection of this world appeared on its own. Bang! However, this nomological protection, which could block many celestials, was still unable to protect him. It was the spirit-devouring monarch grass that had launched the attack. Its single leaf instantly pierced through the protection of the laws and pierced into the body of the spirit-devouring monarch grass that had lost its soul beast, carrying his body into the distance. The energy vibrated in front of him. The second-grade Soul King, who still had a chance to live, saw his clone get hit by the giant hammer. He coughed up blood and flew backward. After that, he didn't see the scene of his clone being killed. His vision became blurry and his consciousness dissipated. The doppelganger's face was extremely pale. Even the netherworld energy on its body had become dim. The craftsman race's Wang Erpin was in a much better state than him, but his expression was extremely ugly. This time, he had assumed that the three of them would be able to easily deal with the other party. Unexpectedly, the other party had a doppelganger. Moreover, it was a doppelganger in the netherworld state. Now that his two companions were dead, even though his opponent's true body had lost its ability to fight, and his clone had also consumed a lot of energy, he still did not have the confidence to kill his opponent. The doppelganger didn't give the second-grade craftsman king any time to hesitate. It charged forward again. When the powerful energy surged, the clone used its strongest technique. The stone saber slashed out and collided with the craftsman race's weapon. The energy vibrated in the sky, and an even more powerful fluctuation spread out. Within this fluctuation, the second-grade craftsman race's Wang Erpin shouted. The original spatial seal disappeared in an instant, and the domain appeared behind the other party. It turned into a powerful force and gathered in the heavy hammer. Fluctuations spread out from the heavy hammer, causing the space to distort. The power was even more terrifying. It was as if the heavy hammer carried a great force. It smashed down, and the void began to tremble violently. A powerful aura descended from the sky. The doppelganger's expression became extremely serious, and it also pushed the netherworld energy in its body to the limit. With a loud bang, a powerful ripple spread out. Wherever the ripple passed, the space distorted violently. The doppelganger flew backward and coughed up blood. The second-grade craftsman race's Wang Erpin was not much better off. At this moment, the spatial seal around them had disappeared. If Zichen entered the world and left now, he would naturally be able to do so without any obstructions. However, he didn't leave. He stood in the distance, coldly looking ahead. The doppelganger rushed forward again, and the energy collided. Accompanied by a powerful fluctuation, the doppelganger and Wang Erpin retreated again. After stabilizing its body, the doppelganger didn't even bother to wipe the blood from the corner of its mouth. It rushed forward again. The netherworld energy in its body was rapidly depleting, and the second-grade craftsman race's Wang Erpin was getting worse and worse. After several consecutive collisions, the two's auras became very weak. The second-grade craftsman race's Wang Erpin glanced at Zichen, but didn't try to be brave anymore. He turned around and left. Whoosh! A sharp whistling sound came from the void. The only leaf of the spirit-devouring grass pierced through the air. It was like a long spear, piercing toward Wang Erpin. Wang Erpin's expression turned cold, and he smashed the heavy hammer in his hand. A dull sound came out, and several white marks appeared in the void. The only leaf of the spirit-devouring grass curled up and flew into the distance. The doppelganger rushed forward again, and the stone saber in its hand was raised high. The netherworld energy lingered on the saber, and it instantly slashed out. The other party raised the heavy hammer to block. A loud sound came out, and Wang Erpin's body flew backward. He was ready to use the force to escape. You can't escape. At this moment, an indifferent voice suddenly came from behind him. It was Zichen's voice. Wang Erpin's expression changed when he heard this voice, because he didn't notice that there was someone behind him at all. Before he could turn around to respond, the protective light shield of the law naturally appeared. The next moment, an even more powerful rumble sounded. Wang Erpin, who turned around, saw many dazzling thunderbolts exploding around him, wreaking havoc. This was the power that Zichen had gathered, and it was all used up in this attack. Standing in the air, he looked at Wang Erpin, who was flying backward, and a cold smile appeared on his face. Such a strike was more than enough. The law defense on the surface of the other party's body exploded. While his body was still unstable, the doppelganger that followed behind had already attacked. The stone saber slashed across the other party's body and swept past his armor. Sparks flew, and a cut appeared on the sturdy armor. The armor was broken. Wang Erpin's expression changed, and a deep sense of fear appeared in his eyes. A sharp whistling sound came from the void. The spirit-devouring grass's attack had arrived. Puff! The slender leaf pierced through his body and began to devour his energy. Chapter 30-32. The three second-grade kings had all turned into corpses. Their corpses were on the verge of being destroyed. Zichen stepped forward and took their divine rings. Then, he entered the world with his doppelganger. In the next moment, the world expanded for thousands of miles, and they disappeared in an instant. After doing this several times, Zichen came to a barren mountain range. He found a safe place to land and entered the world again. Monk and the others were looking at him. When they saw his doppelganger disappear, they knew that there was danger. However, they did not know what level of battle it was. When his doppelganger returned, they saw that his doppelganger had exhausted a lot of his energy and was severely injured. Their expressions turned solemn. Obviously, Zichen had encountered an extremely difficult battle. 3 second-grade kings have come. The Soul Tribe, Craftsman Tribe, and Soldier Tribe are all here. The Pale Zi-chan said in a deep voice, "Our actions will become more difficult in the future." The second-grade kings of the three tribes had come. Obviously, they had attached great importance to Zi-chan. Under such circumstances, if they did not find a way to grow stronger, they would be in trouble. I'm about to comprehend the shield essence. When the time comes, I'll have a way to fight back, Monk said. His words were still filled with unwillingness. All along, he had been the absolute main force of the team. He took the initiative to attack and defend. However, in this world, he was useless. He could only rely on protection to survive. How could he accept this? Not far away, the yin-yang doppelganger and the golden body were comprehending the blade essence without rest. During this period, with the help of the supreme crystal, they were gradually gaining results. Wang Xian'er was comprehending the sword essence. She did not dare to relax. Zhang Haoyan was comprehending the few ancestral piercing steels. Once he comprehended it, his lethality would naturally be stronger. Previously, he had given the spear to Lei Ting. Now, he was comprehending it. In addition, Li Ai was thinking of breaking a few more layers of seals on the heavenly needle. It might be of great use. Yi Qian was also improving the power of the world-annihilating Sacred Bell replica. This was given to Zi-chan by the real world-annihilating Sacred Bell. Later on, Zi-chan gave it to Yi Qian. Devil Ape and the others were thinking of ways to make themselves stronger. Wang Yiping of the divine race had killed many of the spiritlings. This news had caused quite a stir in the area. During this period of time, the soul race constantly sent out experts to attack. They even borrowed people from the other two races. It was obvious that they were paying more and more attention to Wang Yiping. Just then, a shocking piece of news was sent back. The three second-grade kings had all died in battle. Not even their corpses were left behind. As the news spread, there was an uproar in the city. Those natives who were originally high and mighty could no longer sit still. How is this possible? No one could believe this news. It was just a Wang Yiping who had not yet awakened. How could he kill 3 second pin kings who were natural counters to him? When Kang Shuo heard the news, he also couldn't believe it. The last time he brought Kang Imo back, he saw Zi-chan. At that time, the other party looked very ordinary. He even warned the other party. How did it become like this? Did he obtain some kind of opportunity, or was he that powerful? Kang Shuo, the spiritlings are here. Take him to Imo. At this moment, an old voice came from outside the door. Kang Shuo responded and hurried to the door to greet the spiritlings. The spiritlings were all second-grade kings. After seeing Kang Shuo, the two of them walked to Kang Mo's residence. Kang Shuo directly stated the purpose of his visit. Then, he looked at Kang Imo and said, "Kang Imo, tell me everything you know." Kang Imo shook his head and said, "I don't know anything." "What?" Kang Shuo looked at Kang Imo. "You came together. You don't know?" "Big brother saved my life. I won't say anything about him." Kang Imo raised his head and looked at Kang Shuo. His eyes were full of determination. "Even if I die," Kang Shuo shouted in dissatisfaction. "Nonsense. That Zi-chan is our enemy. He is my big brother. He saved me. The grudges between the two of you are settled after he obtained the opportunity through you. If it weren't for Big Brother, I would have died long ago. How could I be where I am today? It's settled for you, but not for me. I owe Big Brother, and I will always owe him." Kang Shuo was angry, but he couldn't do anything about Kang Imo. After returning, the family tested his talent. The result was so amazing that it shocked many elders. Kang Imo was now in high demand in the Kang clan. If it were someone else, how could they be so free? The Spiritas that came clearly knew of Kang Mo's identity. Seeing that Kang Shuo wasn't able to ask anything of value, he smiled and said, "It seems that young Master Imo is someone who values relationships. Then, I won't disturb you any further." Kang Shuo expressed his apology and sent him out. During this time, no one from the family appeared. Obviously, they approved of this matter, so he didn't say much. "Sir, there are no clues." The Soul Race member went back to report. His expression was very respectful. There was a person standing in front of him. This time, when second-grade kings were killed and caused a huge commotion, The matter of besieging Zichun was handed over to this person. Merlot of the Perry family, whose full name was Perry Merlot, was known as the wisest person in the Spiritlings. Although his realm was second grade, no one dared to underestimate him.
Yes.
After hearing the other party's report, Perry Merlot faintly responded and said, "You've worked hard. Go and rest." "Yes, tell Aikson at the door to follow my orders and find all the Spiritlings who have spirit eagles and are good at tracking. Before that, there's no need to deliberately inform me of the progress." Yes. The Spiritlings retreated. A moment later, a voice came from outside the door. "Sir, the Spirit Eagle sent a message." "Yes, bring it in." A servant who clearly wasn't Wang Yiping walked in. He held a jade slip in his hand. The jade slip released a faint light. Perry Merlot took the jade slip and poured his soul power into it. The next moment, the jade slip released a strong light, and the information inside appeared. In this information, there was a detailed record of Zichun. In addition, there were his friends, and even the relationship between Zichun and Kang Emo. It could be said that he only used an extremely short amount of time to find out everything about Zichun. After repeatedly reading the information recorded in the jade slip, Perry Merlot laughed. "It's very interesting. Since they can ignore the rules, they are naturally our enemies. This is a war." Chapter 3033. A faint smile appeared on Paramello's face. He waved his hand, and the messenger respectfully withdrew. When he received the news, he didn't immediately send people to find Zichun. Instead, he sent people to gather information. When he sent people to the craftsmen, he also sent people who had recruited many of the new God Race forces to ask the divine generals who had come with them if they had a good relationship with Zichun and knew anything about him. In the end, he obtained information, so it was time for him to take action. Just as he had said before, the Spiritlings had already taken this matter seriously. Everyone was under his command, so this was a war. Compared to the previous battles over resource mines, this was a one-man battle, making a mountain out of a molehill. However, Paramello was keenly aware that this battle would be much more dangerous than the previous ones. At the very least, many people would die. He waved his hand, causing the space in front of him to distort and reveal a sand table. This sand table was a gigantic region. At this moment, there were many specks of light on the sand table, each of them representing a person. These specks of light formed a giant circle that enveloped the entire region. The specks of light were shrinking at a very slow pace. There were other specks of light on the sand table as well. These specks of light were all kinds of birds, as well as many soul beasts that were skilled at tracking. The sand table in front of him transformed into a ball of light. He held it in his hand, looked up at the sky outside and said, "It's time to go. My lord, it's bad. Many natives have appeared in this region." In the Netherworld, the leader of the Netherworld faction heard the panicked report from his subordinate. Black light swirled around his body as he opened his eyes. "Many?" "Yes, many." He knew that this subordinate of his was usually extremely calm, but he hadn't expected him to be so flustered today. After he left the room, he sensed the panicked atmosphere in the Netherworld. Only then did he realize that this matter was somewhat troublesome. The reason they were like this was because they weren't true members of the Netherworld. At most, they could be considered logistics. In the face of an army of natives, they had no room to fight back. The leader quickly came to a space. At this moment, there were many crystal balls floating in this space. These crystal balls reflected the shadows of many natives. There was one every 10 miles or so there was no limit to how many of them there were. How could this be? Could it be that he wants to find the Netherworld completely? Those were clearly craftsmen. They all had artifact refining domains and were extremely powerful. In this space, the other God Kings in charge of monitoring this matter all felt extremely nervous. "Don't panic. Even if they conduct a thorough search, they might not be able to find us," the leader said. "I'll go and ask around." The Netherworld had existed for many years and had caused many losses to the natives. During this period, there had naturally been many encirclements and annihilations, but none of them could do anything to the foundation of the Netherworld. During this period of time, although the resistance was still going on, it was obviously much less than before. These natives shouldn't be making such a big fuss. He thought of a possibility, but found it inconceivable, so he decided to ask for some inside information through secret channels. After confirming the news, his face was filled with shock. One person killed 3 second-grade martial kings. How is this possible? This news caused him, the founder of the Nether Underworld, to feel incomparably shocked. It was simply unbelievable. He had seen Zichen before, and the other party was only Wang Yiping. He shouldn't be this strong. Could it be that the other party's doppelganger? After returning, he comforted everyone's emotions and at the same time exhorted, send a message to the other Netherworld members to reduce their activities. It's best if they all come back. Those who can't come back should all hide. Don't expose yourselves. After the truth gradually spread from the Netherworld, everyone was stunned by the news. Since the establishment of the Netherworld, the natives had never been mobilized on such a large scale. They didn't expect Zichen's Wang Yiping to do it. It had been a long time since the last battle. The injuries of Zichen and his doppelganger had all recovered. Last time, he killed 3 second-grade martial kings. He believed that the natives would definitely not let the matter rest. Therefore, after recovering from his injuries, Zichen appeared and prepared to leave. This was something that couldn't be helped. He couldn't stay in one place to avoid exposing his whereabouts. After leaving the world, Zichen walked forward, still aimlessly. Fortunately, this was a mountain range, so he couldn't see anyone else. At this time, Zichen didn't notice that a spiritual eagle had appeared in the sky above the clouds. Not only could spiritual eagles fly extremely high, but they could also hide their auras. At the same time, a soul beast appeared on a distant mountain peak. It looked at Zichen from afar, and its figure slowly disappeared. Paramello had just arrived in this area when he learned of Zichen's whereabouts. He smiled lightly and sat in the tent. Looking at the sand table in front of him, he said, "Send a team out. There must be a craftsman in the team." His order was immediately sent out. A team flew in the direction of Zichen, but they didn't find anything. New news quickly came. Zichen was already 10,000 miles away. Paramello sent out a third team, but this time, they still didn't find anything. After 5 teams in a row failed, Paramello smiled faintly. It seems that he has some kind of large-scale teleportation method. He should be able to move several thousand miles at a time. Beside Paramello, a native asked, "Since we've already locked onto his range, should we shrink the encirclement?" Paramello shook his head. "The war has just begun. We can't use all our trump cards. Send the 6th team out." As the order was sent out, the 6th team appeared where Zichen had appeared, but they didn't see him. Just as they were about to turn around and return, a cold voice suddenly rang out. "How did you find me?" There was only 1 second-grade king in the team. The rest were first-grade kings. When they saw Zichen appear, some advanced to attack, some retreated to accumulate power, and some sent signals to the sky. Seeing that they had a limited division of labor, Zichen knew that he didn't have much time left, so he immediately used his killing move. He appeared with his doppelganger, and the battle ended quickly. After collecting the corpses on the ground, his doppelganger disappeared, and he teleported away. After a while, several teams arrived. One of them descended and picked up a memory ball from an inconspicuous place on the ground. Not long after, this memory ball arrived at Paramello's location. Seeing Zichen's decisive killing in the memory ball and the doppelganger that looked like the Netherworld, his expression gradually became serious. "The power of the Netherworld covers your entire body. No wonder you're so strong. It seems that I have to take you seriously." Chapter 30-34. Zichen did not know how his tracks were exposed. In short, every time he appeared recently, the indigenous people would come forward and attack him. Even after he teleported tens of thousands of miles away, this situation still persisted. It was as if countless natives had gathered in this area and filled every nook and cranny. Moreover, his world could not be hidden because the fluctuations were too strong and would be sensed by these indigenous people. Whoosh! His figure reappeared. In less than a quarter of an hour, Zichen sensed the indigenous people with his spiritual thoughts. These indigenous people were moving in a straight line with a very clear goal. Obviously, Everyone's goal was accurate and their speed was extremely fast. He was very sure that his tracks had been discovered, but he wasn't sure how he had been discovered. He released his spiritual thoughts to explore the surroundings, but he did not find anything unusual. After seeing the figures in front of him, Zichen's eyes flashed with a cold light, and he directly flew forward. He used the energy of the thunder body, and a battle broke out. In this battle, Zichen only killed one of Wang Yiping's indigenous people, and then he quickly left. "Heal where you are," a second-grade king from the craftsman clan in the team said in a deep voice. The people who were injured in the previous battle began to heal. Not far away, another new team arrived. It was because of them that Zichen had to leave. This new team did not continue to pursue Zichen. Instead, they stopped to protect the team that was healing. Their purpose was to continuously consume Zichen's energy and, at the same time, to ensure that the team would not suffer any more losses. As for why they did not send more powerful experts to kill him, but instead made such a big fuss, they did not know. They only knew that orders came from above, and everything had to be done according to the orders. There was also a second-grade king from the craftsman clan in the team. After waiting for a while, the previous minor injuries had all healed, and as for the serious injuries, they would be brought back to slowly heal. "Let's go." The team led by the two second-grade kings began to return the way they came. At first, I couldn't believe that a first-grade king could kill a second-grade king without awakening. Now that I've seen it with my own eyes, I have to believe it, said the second-grade king who had participated in the previous battle. Of course he's a great threat. Otherwise, he wouldn't have sent Paramello here. However, we have already set up an inescapable net here. He won't be able to escape even if he grows wings. After a short exchange of words, the two teams separated and returned to their original areas to await orders. At that moment, there was a shadow following the two of them. During that time, the shadow heard every single word of their conversation. He was shadowless. Shadowless left after hearing the useful information and met up with Zichen in a mountain range. "We should be surrounded. This time, the natives are taking this matter very seriously." Shadowless sensed what he heard. After Zichen heard it, his expression became very serious. This time, it seemed that the aboriginals really wanted to kill him with great fanfare. But how did they discover him? Shadowless hadn't heard this yet, so he couldn't give an answer. Once again, Zichen spread out his spiritual senses. Still, he did not discover that someone was secretly monitoring him. Not long after, another team arrived. "Their goal is to exhaust you," Shadowless said. At that moment, Zichen was wondering why the other party's goal was so clear. It was as if they had seen him with their own eyes. Suddenly, a light flashed through his mind. He raised his head and looked at the sky. His spiritual senses couldn't detect anything unusual around him. What about above his head? He remembered that when he killed that second-rank king last time, the other party's soul beast was a spirit eagle. He ignored the natives who were rushing over and directly soared into the sky. As his body flew high into the sky, his vision gradually became clear. Then, he saw a black shadow. He released his spiritual senses and found a black spirit eagle. At the same time, Zichen released his spiritual senses and found more birds and spirit beasts. At that moment, Zichen understood the reason. He couldn't help but sigh in his heart. The other party was really generous. At that moment, the opponents had arrived. When they saw Zichen standing in the sky, their expressions changed. "He discovered our secret. Kill him quickly." Everyone rushed forward. During this time, a domain was opened. A great battle broke out. This domain supported by Wang Yiping soon shattered. In Zichen's world, his clone looked at everyone and said, "The sky is now full of birds that can scout for information. As long as we are in this area, we will definitely be threatened." "Then what should we do now?" Monk asked. "Prepare to leave this area with your real body." This world was big enough. As long as he left this area, it was obviously impossible for these people to find him. Zichen opened his world and began to choose long-distance teleportation. During this time, his figure kept flashing. Every time he appeared, his traces would be clearly transmitted to Paramello by the birds. Looking at Zichen's moving traces on the sand table, Paramello smiled faintly and said, "Interesting." Let's see where he can run to. Zichen's figure flashed again and again. After the last teleportation, his expression changed. This time, the teleportation did not appear naturally. Instead, it was forcefully stopped by a wave of energy. Zichen looked ahead and saw that the space there was releasing all kinds of light. The light overlapped with each other, forming an absolute spatial seal. Below that space stood several figures. They were all from the craftsman race. Their realms varied, and there were often a few rank 1s mixed in with a few rank 2s. This kind of overlapping domain was very powerful. With Zichen's strength, it was impossible for him to break through. At the same time, Zichen also felt a strong sense of threat from ahead. It seemed that apart from these craftsmen, there were other existences that could threaten him, such as Wang Sanpin. Zichen appeared and looked at them. Those people also sensed his presence, but they did not go forward. Instead, they quietly looked at him and walked forward at a constant speed. Seeing them move forward at a constant speed, Zichen's expression immediately turned ugly when he saw that the barrier didn't show any flaws. His figure flashed again and appeared in another place. He found the same situation. After confirming it a few more times, he could not help but reveal a look of shock. If all the outer regions were like this, then how many powerhouses would the indigenous residents send this time? Wasn't this a little too much? However, this method was definitely effective. Once the defensive circle reached a certain range, he would have nowhere to run. When that time came, what awaited him would be death. He entered his world, and his expression became very unsightly. This was a dead end. Chapter 30-35. We've been surrounded. After entering his own world, Zichen said this sentence. Surrounded? The others were stunned. What was going on? Zichen said in a low voice, the surrounding area is filled with natives. There are rank 1 and rank 2, and I suspect there are even rank 3. Moreover, they're all from the craftsman tribe. Hearing Zichen's words, everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. Their expressions changed drastically. To be able to surround Zichen, who could teleport, how big of a deal was that? Then what should we do? Kill our way out? Monk asked. It's hard to kill our way out now. Fortunately, this area is still large, giving us some time. Make use of this time to comprehend the true meaning. In just a few words, Shadowless's voice came from outside the world. Zichen, someone else is coming? Zichen left the world and continued to fight. Monk and the others made use of the time to comprehend the true meaning. From Zichen's expression, they could see that the natives were determined to eliminate them. If they could not kill their way out in time, death would be the only thing that awaited them. In one of the forces, the various Protoss were still busy. Some were preparing to mine, while others were organizing teams to hunt heavenly beasts. At this moment, a ray of light flew from the horizon. It was a figure, and it was moving at an extremely fast speed. At first, the figure did not attract much attention because it was just Wang Yiping. However, as the figure approached, their eyes fell on him, and their faces were filled with surprise. Behind the figure was a group of people. Not only were they natives, but there were also rank 2 powerhouses among them. Sensing this unusual pursuit, everyone stopped to watch curiously. What's going on? Why is a group of people chasing one person? Look, there are more in other places. Along with the exclamations, natives appeared in other places. They were filled with murderous intent as they charged towards Zichen. This scene shocked the divine race. They didn't know what was going on. A group of natives was actually chasing after a divine race expert. At this moment, all the members of the Shen clan who were part of this faction stepped forward. Even their leader showed up. He looked at the sky and frowned. In the next moment, his expression changed drastically, and his eyes were filled with shock. At this moment, the expressions of the other God clan members were almost exactly the same as his. With nowhere to run, the Protoss met the natives head-on. The moment the two sides came into contact, there were flashes of swords and sabers. They saw the indigenous people lose their vitality one after another and fall to the ground. You're courting death. Powerful rank 2 auras were wreaking havoc. Powerhouses arrived one after another. The moment the God race clashed with Wang Erpin, a terrifying aura erupted in an instant. Wang Erpin was sent flying while the god race rank 1 flew forward. With a flash of saber light, the craftsman Wang Erpin's domain was cleaved apart, and the god transformed into a streak of light that shot into the distance. After fleeing for some distance, the figure disappeared in a flash. The other natives continued their pursuit after cleaning up the battlefield. The surroundings quickly became quiet. All the god clan members stared in shock at the place where those people disappeared. They were shocked and puzzled. When did such a powerful existence appear in the god clan? Zichen's figure disappeared and reappeared. Then, he saw a team not far away. After seeing Zichen, they rushed in his direction without hesitation, even if there was no Wang Erpin in this team. Releasing his spiritual senses, Zichen saw that within the range of his spiritual senses, many teams had appeared and were flying towards him. Whoosh! His figure flashed and disappeared again. However, the situation was still the same. In this sealed area, he could only stay by himself for less than the time it would take to brew a cup of tea. Every time he appeared, an enemy would appear not too long after. This cycle repeated. Under such circumstances, Zichen's consumption would only be greater. During this period, he could not effectively recover. During this period, he could only rely on his doppelgangers to fight while his real body rested and recovered. In this area, Paramello was still looking at the sand table. More than a dozen people stood beside him, responsible for passing on orders. Looking at Zichen's figure on the sand table, which was obviously unable to escape from the encirclement, one of them asked, "Sir, why don't you just send experts to kill him?" Paramello shook his head and said, "This kind of person is extremely difficult to deal with. We only have one chance, so we can't afford to suffer any losses, let alone take risks. Although this is slower, the most important thing is to be safe. When the team completely shrinks, it will be the time for him to die." Looking at Zichen on the sand table, who was constantly disappearing and reappearing, Paramello smiled faintly and said, "He seems to be coming in this direction. It seems that we are about to meet." Birds were everywhere in the sky, paying attention to every place in this area. Zichen had nowhere to hide. He came to the periphery again and saw the team that was obviously shrinking. In his eyes, a cold light flashed, and he was ready to try to break through. He flew forward, with lightning flashing on his body. Obviously, he was trying to open a gap here. A ray of light appeared in front of him. Although the encirclement was not affected in the slightest, a king's second grade appeared. When the king's second grade appeared, the shrinking encirclement stopped. That king's second grade did not take the initiative to attack. Instead, he looked at Zichen indifferently. The team in front of him did not advance, but at the other edges, under the condition that there were no gaps in the encirclement, the team sped up. Zichen rushed forward, gripping the long saber in his hand. On the other side, a glowing sword appeared in the king's second grade's hand. He was from the soldier race. The moment the two of them came into contact, a powerful shockwave spread out. When this shockwave reached the edge of the encirclement, it was neutralized by the countless craftsmen's domains. While the two of them were fighting, more enemies appeared in other directions. Zichen had used the power of this battle to retreat. This time, he had only come to test the waters and see if he could find an opportunity. Obviously, the layers of domains did not give Zichen any chance to take advantage of them. For so many experts to be so obedient, it was obvious that they had received an irresistible order. Zichen wanted to find that person and see if there was a chance. In fact, he also knew that it was impossible for him to have a chance. There must be more experts around that person. Moreover, looking at the current situation, they were really in danger this time. Searching along the way, Zichen finally found a camp, which was full of indigenous people. Zichen stood outside the camp. Those indigenous people noticed him, but they did not directly rush up. A man walked out of the camp, followed by several martial kings at level 2. Chapter 30-36. Paramello walked out of the camp and walked towards Zichen. Previously, he had insisted on going alone. Naturally, no one agreed. Over the past few days, they had seen Zichen's strength through watching the battle. They were worried that Zichen was still hiding his strength. If he had some powerful means to kill Paramello in one move, they would have nowhere to cry. "Hello, Zichen." Paramello stopped dozens of meters away from Zichun. If he had come alone, he would have felt the pressure. But now, Zichun should be the one feeling the pressure. Fortunately, there were only a few second-grade kings. The others did not follow. Otherwise, he was really worried that Zichun would be scared away. "It's you," Zichun said coldly. "My name is Paramello. I'm from the Paramello family." Paramello smiled faintly. His smile was very gentle and could even be said to be very kind. Zichun frowned. He did not expect that the existence who could mobilize so many indigenous people would be a second-grade king. At this moment, he was thinking about whether he could use all his trump cards to kill the other party in an instant. In this way, without the other party's command, he believed that he could seize the opportunity to rush out. Paramello looked at the calm Zichun and said, "I guess you should be thinking about how to kill me now, right? I advise you to give up on this idea. I already know your methods very well. How can you possibly kill me? Your combat strength is not weak. You also have the netherworld doppelganger and a space that can take you to teleport. Your friends should be hiding in that space, right?" Zichun's expression did not change. Since the other party could monitor his every move, it was normal for him to know about his means. When two armies fight, envoys are not killed. Today, I will let you go, but in the end, you will still die. Don't think that I will recruit you. That is impossible. We will not raise a tiger. You must die. Paramello was full of smiles as he spoke. His attitude was as if he was an old friend that Zichun had not seen for many years. Zichun looked at the other party and said nothing. In the next moment, his expression changed, and he disappeared from where he stood. A sword mark suddenly appeared and swept past Zichun's body, leaving a cut in the air. Zichun appeared in the distance with a bloody gash on his arm. He ignored the bleeding wound and didn't look at the native who had launched the sneak attack. His eyes were fixed on Paramello with a cold smile. Whoosh! In the next moment, his figure disappeared. The moment he disappeared, another sword mark flashed past, and a few streaks of blood flew in the air. Your speed is not bad. I was too careless. If I had known earlier, I would have arranged for a craftsman to be here. Perhaps I really could have killed him. Looking at the trail of blood in the air, Paramello waved his hand, indicating for Wang Sanpin to come back and stop chasing. Zichun retreated with 2 sword wounds on his body. In front of an absolute enemy, Zichun could understand the lack of morality. He could accept the fact that the other party had arranged for Wang Sanpin to launch a sneak attack while saying that he would not kill the messenger. However, as he accepted this, killing intent rose in Zichun's heart. It was naturally impossible for him to run away for the time being, so he could only take advantage of this time to take the initiative to kill. Vitality flowed through his body, and his previous injuries quickly healed. A team appeared in front of Zichun. This time, Zichun did not take the initiative to wait for them to arrive. Instead, he teleported in front of them. The moment he appeared, his clone appeared from the other side, and the spirit-devouring monarch grass also appeared in the air. A battle broke out instantly. The Thunder Constitution's energy was in a frenzy. As the energy rumbled, several Wang Yipin were sent flying. The spirit-devouring monarch grass, which had been waiting for a long time, took the opportunity to attack, piercing through these people's bodies. On the clone side, the stone blade slashed, decapitating one rank 1 after another. Before the other teams arrived, the battle here was already over. Zichun teleported away. This team without a second rank king was completely slaughtered in a short period of time. This was the price he had to pay for the 2 wounds on his body. After teleporting away and switching places with his clone, Zichun would continue to kill after he had fully recovered. During this period, he would encounter many forces. Many god clans could see this and were extremely shocked. 3 years passed in a flash. In these 3 years, the encirclement had shrunk a lot. Zichun's figure appeared again. Another team had arrived. In this team, there was a king rank 2. Whoosh! A ray of brilliance appeared beside Zichun. It was Monk. Holding a light shield, he rushed toward the king rank 2. On the light shield, a ray of light was ignited. The light shrouded the light shield, and a strong and heavy aura burst out. Boom! Monk rushed forward and collided with the king rank 2. A powerful force exploded, and the king rank 2 was sent flying by Monk. Zichun and his clone appeared. Together with the spirit-devouring monarch grass, they began to slaughter the other Wang Yiping. Monk laughed proudly and charged toward the king rank 2 again. This was a king rank 2 from the craftsman clan. He smashed the heavy hammer in his hand. The heavy hammer landed on the light shield, causing countless ripples on the light shield. The powerful force activated the patterns on the light shield. In the next moment, these patterns glowed, forming an extremely strong rebound force. Boom! This king rank 2 was sent flying again by the rebound force. In the blink of an eye, all the Wang Yiping here were slaughtered. Only Wang Yiping was left. The void flickered, and a black shadow appeared silently beside Wang Yiping. Buzz! A ray of rule light appeared beside Wang Yiping, protecting his body. The energy trembled, and Wang Yiping retreated. However, the rule light on the surface of his body did not disappear. Then, Zichen's real body and his clone arrived. They broke through the king rank 2's defense and killed him. Looking at the disappearing image on the memory crystal, Paramello's face gradually turned gloomy. In the past few years, Zichen's friends had appeared one after another. They still had not awakened, but they had the combat power to deal with them. This had caused them great losses. Now, the only thing that made him feel fortunate was that the encirclement had become extremely small after several years. It was not far from the time to reel in the net. After another 2 years, when the death count of the Aboriginals had almost exceeded 3 digits, the encirclement had finally shrunk to a limit. Paramello looked at the small encirclement on the sand table and said, "Let's go. It's time to reel in the net." He walked toward the light circle. In the light circle, Zichun was completely surrounded. The space he was in was suppressed by countless domains, making it impossible for him to escape. He stood there. Beside him stood Tyrant, Lei Ting, Wang Xian and Zhang Haoyin. Over the years, they had killed too many Aboriginals. Chapter 30-37. Indeed, it was time to fight for their lives because they were surrounded by Aborigines. Among them, there were rank 1, rank 2, and even some rank 3 who were hiding. This was a trap. Zichun had known for a long time, but he had tried many ways to break out of it, but he could not. During this period, the army of Aborigines would pass through many forces and go through countless checks. Those who were slightly abnormal would be killed. It was said that the careful checks this time also found many people from the netherworld. It took them more than 5 years to shrink the encirclement step by step to a very small area. It was a stupid method, but it was extremely effective. It did not give Zichen any chance to take advantage of it. Now, it was time to fight. The Aborigines in the distance just stood there indifferently, blocking the space and not taking the initiative to attack. Zichen knew they were waiting for someone. "Let us out." In Zichen's world, Su Mingyao said. Zichen's doppelganger shook his head. Even if he died, his world might not appear. In this way, everyone might have a chance to survive. "If you all die in battle, what's the point of us living?" Su Mingyao said. "The structure of this world has already explained everything. If we stay, we will only continue to be suppressed, and the result will only be worse." The world opened, and Su Mingyao and the others all appeared. This was one of the few times they all appeared in the few years they had been in this world. Just as they appeared, a hole opened in the space in front of them, and Paramello walked out from it. Dozens of people walked out with him. The weakest among them was a rank 2 king, and the strongest had reached rank 3. With these people taking action, Zichun and the others had no chance to survive. Paramello stood at the front, looked at Zichun and said, "These are all the people in your team, right? Very good. After years of war, we still have the last laugh." Zichun said indifferently, "So what? In the end, we still won." In the past few years, they had killed many Aborigines. According to the exchange of a life for a life, they did win. Paramello said nonchalantly, "This is war. Naturally, there will be life and death. After I kill all of you, I will keep the women in your team as a reward for your hard work. It can be considered as compensation for everyone's efforts over the years. Even if I die, you will die before me." A powerful aura circulated around Zichen's body. At the same time, Zichen's friends behind him also activated their own energy. At this moment, their energy auras were fully activated, and their bodies shone with bright light. A faint disdain appeared at the corner of Paramello's mouth as he said, "There's no need for meaningless resistance." With that, he waved his hand and said, "Kill the men, keep the women." Behind him, those second-grade kings and third-grade kings walked forward. Zichen's aura grew stronger and stronger, and he gripped his sheathed long saber tightly. Ichien and Li Ai, who were also circulating their auras, were a little distracted under this obviously tense atmosphere. The two of them raised their heads at the same time and looked toward the sky. At this moment, apart from the sealed space, there seemed to be nothing else in the sky. There was a trace of doubt and uncertainty in the eyes of the two of them as they looked at the sky. At this moment, those aboriginals had already rushed forward, and a powerful oppressive aura emerged. While the two of them felt extremely pressured, they could sense the aura in the sky more clearly. After that, the two of them looked at each other and saw the same hint of doubt in each other's eyes. Looking at the situation in front of them, Li Ai nodded at Ichien. Ichien nodded in response, and her red lips moved slightly as she said, "Open." She only said one word. Her voice was not loud, but it was as if her words were the law, causing everyone around her to hear it clearly. This voice seemed to ring out in their souls, and everyone heard it, including Zichen and the others, including those second-grade kings and third-grade kings who were charging forward, as well as Paramello in the distance, and the aboriginals who had sealed the space outside. This simple word seemed to have some kind of strange power of the rules, and it made everyone's heart tremble. In the next moment, above Zichen and the others, the space began to distort, and a vast aura appeared from within. This vast aura instantly tore apart the countless domain seals that the aboriginals had put up. Such an unforeseen event made everyone look up at the sky. A vortex appeared in the sky, and within that vortex, countless power of the rules surged. The vortex was expanding, and a terrifying pressure descended from that vortex. This pressure only made Zichen and the others feel pressured, but when it fell on the aboriginals, it was like a mountain, and many of their faces turned pale. "What's going on?" Paramello looked at the sky with a face full of fear. Looking at the vortex, he felt that it was unbelievable. The vortex expanded rapidly, and a world appeared from within. In that world, there was a tall altar. Zichen and the others looked at the changes in the sky with a blank expression, and they were also very confused about the altar that had suddenly appeared. However, when the aboriginals around them saw the altars, their expressions changed again. "That's the awakening altar. Weren't all the altars destroyed? How come there are still more? This is impossible." The aboriginals who recognized the altars were all in disbelief. In their knowledge, all the awakening altars had been destroyed, and no one had hidden them. But now, what was going on? Zichen and the others, who were originally confused, were pleasantly surprised when they heard the exclamations around them. However, they still didn't know what was going on. But in the next moment, they finally understood. Within the open vortex, two rays of light appeared. These two rays of light descended from the sky and fell on Ichien and Li Ai. The others were still in shock, and they didn't understand what was going on. However, when Zichen saw this scene, he suddenly understood and said, "So that's how it is." Everyone didn't know Li Ai's true identity, but Zichen knew that Li Ai was a goddess like Ichien. Now, the two rays of light fell on the two of them because they were goddesses. "Destroy it quickly." At this moment, Paramello's voice came from behind, and many second-grade and third-grade kings rushed toward the altar. Humph! A cold snort suddenly sounded, and Ichien rose into the air and stood in midair. Chapter 3038. With a wave of her hand, she sent a group of natives flying. Her actions were as simple as swatting away a group of annoying flies. The others were extremely shocked. They all stared blankly at the sky, almost in a daze. Ichien's colorful dress danced, and her body was surrounded by light. The natives couldn't look directly at her. "So that's how it is," Zichen murmured. He finally understood the reason. He understood why God Tajantian still let Ichien take the risk here even though he knew the situation in this world. It turned out that there was a hidden, awakening altar here that the natives didn't know about. Looking at the current situation, the first condition to open this altar was to be the son of God, or to be precise, to have the bloodline of God. After discovering the reason, Zichun was very regretful. If he had let Ichien and Li Ai appear earlier and stay in this world for a while longer, they might have discovered this place long ago. Why would they deliberately waste so many years? The appearance of this altar was obviously because the two of them had activated their full strength. The bloodline aura of God had been stimulated, and they had been recognized by the rules. Paramello, who was originally full of confidence, showed obvious panic on his face. After seeing that those powerhouses couldn't do anything to the altar, he shouted again, "Kill those people first." After killing Zichun and the others, even if the awakening altar appeared, it would be useless. Ichien waved her hand again. A ray of light fell from the sky and fell on Zichun and the others. The next moment, their bodies were enveloped by the light. They flew up uncontrollably into the sky. This light was the pure light of rules. Previously, when they were killing enemies, they had to break through it. For them, it was the most difficult to deal with. But now, this light of rules was under Ichien's control, protecting them. The attacks of the third-grade and second-grade experts came, but they couldn't shake this light of rules at all. This situation was similar to when the divine race faced the aboriginals. Damn it, how could this be? Seeing them rise into the sky, Paramello's face was full of anger. Zichun, who was in the sky, looked at Paramello and said, "Paramello, right? We will meet again." After saying that, the group flew toward the altar in the sky and disappeared. Damn it, how could this be? Paramello looked at the place where the group disappeared. His face became very ugly. He didn't expect things to turn out like this. In such a situation where they were bound to die, they could still find the altar and escape. There was unwillingness in his eyes, but more confusion and helplessness. All the altars had been destroyed, so why were there still altars here? And the rules would protect these god clan. These natives could go against everything in this world, but they could not go against the rules. Is the world will change? Paramello raised his head to look at the sky, his expression becoming extremely solemn. So what if they have the altars? There are only a few people of them, ants. A king third pin looked at Paramello, who was in a daze. There were records of awakening in their families. Even in the past, not all of the Protoss were able to awaken. There were always some who were unable to awaken and needed their protection. They disdained to protect the weak, and even the awakened gods were not much stronger than them. Thus, a battle began. In that battle, the natives won a complete victory and suppressed the divine race from then on. This suppression lasted for many years. They never thought that there would be a problem this time. That being said, Paramello still couldn't calm down. The other natives were also shocked by this scene. But there was nothing they could do. The strange phenomenon in the sky had disappeared. Everything returned to normal. No one knew where the altar was. Naturally, they couldn't find it. After a short stay, they could only retreat. They were full of confidence when they came, but they left dejected. After years of encirclement, they ended with heavy losses. The divines in the distance also saw the scene that happened in the encirclement, but they didn't know what was going on. To them, it was fortunate that those people were not dead, and they were thankful for that. Because of the existence of these people, the natives' undefeated legend had been broken. This was also a kind of encouragement for all the God Clan. Not long after, a piece of news spread. The space that suddenly appeared was an altar space. That altar was the foundation of all the God Clan's power. The awakening altar had always been a secret among most of the God Clan. But after the altar appeared today, it was no longer a secret. Knowing that the awakening altar was the foundation of their power, the God Clan couldn't remain calm. The same news quickly spread to the Netherworld. The leader of the Netherworld was shocked. He found it unbelievable. He knew very well that the awakening altar had been completely destroyed. But why? After learning the details through other means, the Netherworld leader's expression changed. Could it be her? At this moment, the Netherworld leader began to suspect the identity of the woman who caused the awakening altar to appear. After carefully thinking about it, his expression changed again. The reason for that was because he could only think of a single possibility. As for that possibility, it caused him to be extremely shocked. The God Clan member beside Zichun was also the woman who caused the awakening altar to appear. She was a son of God. This was the only possibility that could explain why the altars, which had been destroyed long ago, suddenly appeared. Because this place was created by the God of God. Only the God of God knew all the secrets of this place. Looks like they've gotten themselves into big trouble this time. A son of God has actually come here. A smile appeared on the Netherworld leader's face. The natives had suffered a great loss. He was naturally happy to see it. When the crowd reappeared, they were already in the middle of the altar. The altar was very tall. There were 8 pillars around it. An ancient aura permeated the surroundings. This was an altar space, and there was only one altar in this place. This is the awakening altar? At this moment, the crowd curiously sized up the altar. There was a trace of joy in their eyes. If it wasn't for the altar's sudden appearance, they would be in danger. How do we use this altar? Tyrant asked curiously. Awakening power. I Qian's figure descended from above. What power? The crowd was still puzzled. I Qian shook her head and said, a power that belongs to you, but it's completely activated. The crowd still didn't understand what I Qian was trying to say. However, since they were already here, they had enough patience to sense the altar and sense the power within it. After a short rest, the crowd sat cross-legged on the altar and began to sense the power that I Qian had mentioned. Zichen's body emitted light. An aura was released. When this aura came into contact with the altar, it was infinitely magnified. Chapter 3039. Rather than calling it awakening, it was better to call it activating one's original power. The moment Zichen sat cross-legged, the place he was in became a space of its own. In this space, there were many rule forces. These rule forces were the ones he had before. Some were comprehended when he broke through to the Earth Prime Realm, while some were derived from his own world. Seeing these rule forces and thinking about the battle with the natives, Zichun, who had experienced the Earth Prime Realm, quickly understood the meaning of the awakening altar. He opened his eyes. The moment he opened his eyes, the isolated space around him disappeared. He saw the people on the altar again. These are rule forces, Zichun said. We need to reactivate the rule forces that we once mastered. What rule forces? Martin asked in confusion. Lunk also looked at him in surprise. Luo Yi and Li Ai also couldn't understand. One of them was an expert on the list, while the other was a goddess. Zichen said, when we reach the Earth Prime Realm, the rule forces that we comprehended are our original power. The awakened power is also the rule forces that we comprehended at that time. It's just that with our current realm, the rule forces will naturally become stronger. Zichen's explanation was simple. Tyrant and the others nodded, but Li Ai and the other Protoss were confused. Because they had never experienced the Earth Prime Realm. The 3 realms of heaven, earth, and mortal were only for ordinary mortals. They had to walk step by step and experience many hardships. But for the Protoss, they were born as higher beings. They didn't need to walk step by step. Their power surpassed the Heaven Prime Realm at birth and was even stronger than many saints. Right now, the Protoss didn't understand the power that Tyrant and the others could easily understand. This was the meaning of awakening. This power was hidden in the body and didn't appear. It needed the special power of the altar to guide it. This was for the Protoss. For the mortals who came from the Life Star and relied on themselves to reach their current realm, this wasn't awakening, but reactivation. Relatively speaking, it was simpler than the Protoss. I Qian had reached the Earth Prime Realm before her power was completely transformed into divine power. She naturally knew what her rule forces were. The Celestials were different. Among the many laws, they had to choose the one that was most suitable for them. This was much more difficult to comprehend than when they were in the earthly realm. After Zichen told everyone everything, he continued to sit cross-legged and meditate on the laws in his body. His clone appeared beside him, also sitting cross-legged to comprehend. Countless types of rule force filled the space around him. Zichun sensed these rule forces and found the most suitable one for him. He had a very clear goal, which was the rule power that he had fused with back then. That power was the fusion of many rule powers, and it was called rule destruction. At the same time, it was a unique power that only he possessed in this world. That kind of power was called heaven-defying power. Because of his clear goal, it was not difficult for Zichun to choose among the countless rule-bending powers. He had found his own rule power. Compared to before, it had become much stronger. The rule power that he had comprehended had also become much stronger as he grew stronger. This power had always been there, but it was suppressed by the rules of the world. It was just like how after Tyrant and the others came to the divine world, they were unable to open the world that they had cultivated. Those worlds were still there, but they were suppressed by the rules of the world and could not be opened. The power of this world was very special, and this altar was an extremely special existence. So after coming here, it was able to stimulate this kind of power. There was no doubt that this was the biggest secret of this world, and also the greatest opportunity for all Protoss. Zichun used a very short time to find the power he needed, but he did not take it away immediately, because there were still countless types of power around him. These powers were different from the ones that appeared when the Protoss awakened and needed to be comprehended. Those powers needed to be chosen by the Protoss, and they could not obtain all of them. But the power that appeared around Zichun was the power that evolved after his world was perfected. It could be said that they were the rule forces that he had mastered. At this moment, if Zichun chose to accept the heaven-defying destructive power, it would mean that he would have to exclude all the other powers of the laws. Although this would still make him stronger than he was now, it would still be a pity for Zichun. So Zichun hesitated, but the hesitation was only temporary. The next moment, he knew what to do. Fuse. This was a path that he had walked a long time ago, and there was no harm in walking it again. He came to the side of the rule-bending powers and reached out to grab it. At this moment, a rule force fell on him, trying to expel him from this place. A powerful fluctuation appeared on Zichun's body, and this fluctuation blocked the rule-bending powers. Immediately after, Zichun grasped the heaven-defying destructive force and began to guide the surrounding rule force to gather towards the heaven-defying destructive force. These rule forces revolved around Zichun's body, and then one by one, they entered the rule-bending powers. With the addition of these different rule forces, the light released by the rule-bending powers in front of Zichun became brighter and brighter, and its aura became stronger and stronger. Zichun grabbed the rule-bending powers and began to absorb the other rule forces around him to strengthen his own power. Above his head, the rule-bending powers that were isolated disappeared. The aura released by Zichun's body also became stronger and stronger. After an unknown amount of time, when the last rule force was fused into his own power, the rule-bending powers in front of Zichun turned into a circle. This was a perfect circle without any flaws, as if it was a world composed of rule forces. It was just that in this world full of countless rule forces, the rule-bending powers had an absolute dominant position. Within the sphere of rule-bending powers, there was a flash of lightning, indicating the attribute of this rule force. Looking at this perfect sphere of rule-bending powers with satisfaction, Zichun opened his mind and absorbed this power. This power entered his body and connected to the world, and his world's rule force began to change. The originally scattered rules seemed to have been combined at this moment. It was as if a group of ordinary people had become a well-trained and orderly troop of soldiers. The rule force was still the same rule force, but its essence had changed. After fusing with the rule force, Zichun opened his eyes. He disappeared from the independent space of the altar, and a powerful aura was released from his body. Countless bolts of lightning, emitting different lights, circulated around his body, releasing a terrifying aura. Chapter 30-40. The aura released from Zichun's body was extremely terrifying. It wasn't any weaker than when he was using his thunder body. At the same time, it wasn't any weaker than his clone. Such a terrifying aura caused the others who were comprehending to wake up. They looked up at Zichun. After sensing the power around him, their expressions changed. Then, a look of surprise appeared in their eyes. "How is it?" Su Mengyao stood up and looked at Zichun. "Buzz." Zichen's body flashed with light as he activated the power of the natural order. A space appeared behind him. It was like the reality realm, but it was also like the craftsman race's craftsman space. Martin and the others were surprised. They didn't have this kind of power before, so they didn't know what this situation meant. In their opinion, the space behind Zichen was the same as the craftsman domain. After witnessing the power of the craftsman domain, they were naturally amazed by the space behind Zichen. Zichen looked up at the altar and said, "It seems that in this world, we can remove the suppression of the world's rules. With this altar, we can get twice the result with half the effort." Those who had walked through the Earth realm were all too familiar with this scene, so they all became excited. Zichen had successfully awakened. They had also walked through this realm, so they would naturally awaken as well. After awakening our own rules, we can naturally ignore this suppression. Zichen said with a smile, "When we leave, it'll be time for us to counterattack." Although Zichen was smiling, his smile was cold. He naturally wouldn't forget the years of pursuit and Wang Sanpin's sneak attack. At this moment, in the world behind Zichen, a powerful energy suddenly emerged. This energy was fed back into Zichen's body, and Zichen's aura began to skyrocket. His soul changed under the surge of energy and soon reached a limit. Then, without encountering any obstacles, he crossed this boundary. Wang Sanpin. It could also be said that he was an ancestral king. The moment he broke through, the soul of the clone not far away also began to change. It was just that his clone hadn't sensed his rule force yet. Zichen began to refine the Supreme Crystal to consolidate his cultivation. He had obtained quite a lot of Supreme Crystal over the years of constant fighting and killing. He also had a lot of materials. After he left this time, he could go to the Netherworld to exchange for them. After reactivating his own rule force, Zichen's combat power had undoubtedly become more powerful. This was also his strongest state. Even though his world could be slashed apart, it was not recognized by the rules. It was not like the lightning body, which could surpass the rules of the world, so its battle prowess was limited. Things were different now. If another craftsman came, it would be much more difficult to trap him with the artifact refining domain, unless that craftsman was much more powerful than Zichen. If he were to encounter the suppression of countless domains like last time, Zichen would only need a single thought to break free. This was because although they had many domains, their grades were too low. He returned to his own world and began to familiarize himself with his current strength. The others were still comprehending. Paramello led his troops back, and all the natives of the entire world were under his command. He believed that this was a war, so he stood his ground and stopped the method of sending powerhouses to kill. He used the stupidest and most reliable method, and after many years, it was finally time to reap the fruits of victory. However, the heavens did not let him have his way. The awakening altar suddenly appeared and took away those people. This news caused all of the natives to become uneasy. As a result, more people were sent out to find the hidden altar space. Everyone panicked, as if the end of the world had come. What are you panicking for? We were able to win the battle back then, so why should we be afraid of a few dozen God race experts? Faced with the panicked atmosphere, the older generation stepped out to suppress it. This made many of the younger natives feel slightly more at ease. Kongimo, who had been under house arrest in the craftsman race, laughed happily when he heard this news. "I knew that Big Brother would be fine." He had wanted to leave the craftsman race immediately after hearing about the siege, but he had been under house arrest ever since. He was very happy to hear this news. Afterwards, he no longer made a fuss and began to focus on cultivation. He hoped that he would be able to help in the next battle. It had been 3 years since the last battle. During these 3 years, the natives had never given up on searching for Zichen and the others. Almost all of the God race forces knew about this matter. They were also waiting for Zichen and the others to appear. If they really did awaken, it would be an extremely good thing for all of the God race. During these few years, the Netherworld did not make any big moves. It seemed very quiet, as if it was also waiting. In private, many god generals were taken to the Netherworld to comprehend the power of the Netherworld. Zichen comprehended the fused power the fastest. It took him about a year. After that, he stayed in the Netherworld and comprehended the strongest power he had obtained so far. When he entered the Netherworld, He told everyone that his power of rules had been fused again. During these years, some people would inevitably comprehend some other rules. Once they fused, their combat strength would naturally become stronger. Just as Zichen was comprehending his own power, his body suddenly trembled and he looked into the distance. He saw a ray of light released from the Saber Ancestor's tablet. It was a ray of Saber Intent, a king-level Saber Intent. Before the Saber Intent, the golden body stood up and turned into a ray of light that returned to Zichen's body. During those years, he had been fighting and did not have time to comprehend the Saber Intent. Therefore, when the monks comprehended the true meaning of the ancestral tablet, he still did not comprehend it. After such a long time, the clone finally comprehended the true meaning. The clone's comprehension was equivalent to his comprehension. Next, it was time for him to fuse. He got up and walked toward the ancestral tablet in front of him. It took him a very short time to fuse the Saber Intent comprehended by the clone. When the long saber was unsheathed, 3 rays of Saber Intent circulated. They were 3 levels of Saber Intent. Zichen walked in front of the ancestral tablet. The 3 rays of Saber Intent on the saber flew out and landed on the ancestral tablet in front of him. The next moment, the ancestral tablet began to tremble and then shrank. It finally turned into a ray of light and fused with the saber. As the ancestral tablet fused with the saber, Zichen could clearly feel the power of the saber. There was no doubt that he had mastered another powerful attack. After comprehending the Saber Intent, it was time for Zichen to comprehend the true meaning of speed. As for the monks and the others, they had activated their own power of rules one after another. After activating, the world that they could not open before had turned into a domain world this time. Martin, Lunk, Roy, and Li Ai still had not comprehended it. It could even be said that they were still confused. 2 years later, Yi Qian also comprehended it. Chapter 3041. The aura released by Yi Qian wasn't very strong, but it had a special pressure. This pressure vaguely had the aura of a God realm expert. When everyone sensed this aura, their expressions changed. Why is there such a pressure? Zichen walked out of the world and looked at Yi Qian. He was puzzled, but more than that, he was pleasantly surprised. It should be the change of the bloodline, said Yi Qian. When the bloodline of a God realm expert changed, even if he didn't have the fighting capacity of a God realm expert, he would still be much stronger than an ordinary God realm expert. Obviously, this was a good thing. Everyone looked at Li Ai. They already knew that Li Ai was also a son of God, but his situation was different from Yi Qian's. Li Ai shook his head slowly and said with shame, "I haven't felt it yet." Zichen smiled and comforted him. "It's okay. Take your time to feel it. When I reached this step, it took me 1,000 years. That's why I can break through the realm so fast." Li Ai nodded. Martin and the others also felt the pressure in their hearts lessen. Even Zichen, who had great talents, took 1,000 years. Compared to Zichen, they didn't have outstanding talents. In the following time, Zichen's friends from the Life Star stimulated their strongest rule power one after another. When they felt this power, the world domain that they could use in this world also gave them some energy feedback, which helped them break through to King Realm Stage 2. After breaking through, they continued to refine the blue spirit crystal to strengthen their Realm Stage 2. Zichen was feeling the essence of the ancestral wing tablet in the world. Yi Qian suddenly came to him and said, "If you're in a hurry to leave, we can leave now." Zichen turned around and looked at Yi Qian. He didn't understand. Back then, Li Ai and I both sensed the energy fluctuations. I was the one who opened this place, so I can also take this place away. Similarly, Li Ai can open an awakening altar that belongs to her alone, said Yi Qian. Zichen stood up and said with surprise, "This place can be taken away?" Yi Qian smiled and said, "Others can't. Only I can take it away." When Zichen heard this, he was both surprised and delighted. At the same time, he sighed in his heart. The gods who had built this place might have predicted that the natives would rebel, so they deliberately left behind other awakening altars. These awakening altars could only be activated and controlled by the sons of gods. At the same time, Zichen was also guessing if this was the scene that Heavenly God would be happy to see. He looked at Yi Qian and asked, What do you plan to do next? Ichien was slightly startled. Why are you asking me? Shouldn't I be asking you what plans you have? Zichen said, perhaps this is the true intention of the heavenly gods. Ever since you came to the god realm, you have yet to develop your own forces. This is a good opportunity. Ichien understood what Zichen meant. After coming to the divine world, the other children of gods all had their own forces and families to support them. Ichien didn't. Other than her heavenly godfather, she didn't have any other power in the god realm. In fact, she didn't even receive any power from a heavenly god. She only had a small group of people from the god city in the Moonwolf clan. However, their numbers were too small, and their realms were too low. Now, it was different. All the god clans in this world were suppressed by the rules. If Ichien appeared with the awakening altar, it would have a profound meaning to the god clans in this world. If Ichien could build up her forces in this world, it would be fast. Moreover, the people she recruited would be experts. Ichien was very smart. Of course, she understood what Zichen meant. She smiled and said, how can you say that I don't have a force? The Life Star is my force, and you are also a member of my force. Now, I can appoint you as the vanguard and recruit a group of loyal experts. Okay. Zichen nodded. Actually, his words were unnecessary. The two of them were already inseparable. When they walked out of the world, Li Ai stopped comprehending. Ichien nodded at her. Li Ai's figure flashed, leaving the awakening altar and entering the space. Then, she released her aura and summoned her awakening altar. The void vibrated, and another awakening altar appeared. A mighty aura spread out. Facing this aura, Zichen and the others, who had comprehended the power of rules, had the power to resist. Li Ai and the other god clans who had not awakened the power of rules went to her awakening altar. Ichien kept her awakening altar. After leaving the coordinates of Li Ai's awakening altar, Zichen and the others flashed and left. After a few years, they reappeared in this world. Everyone had gained power and broken through. Are we going to take revenge directly? Monk asked. He could not wait. Zichen looked around and said, no, let's go and find out some information first. Among all the god clans, the one who knew the natives and this world the best was, of course, the Netherworld. Zichen planned to go to the Netherworld's forces to ask about the situation. Everyone followed him. Along the way, they encountered some heavenly beasts. They fought to kill them. After awakening their powers, they could ignore the rules and defense of this place. Naturally, they could fight freely. Zichen came to the end of the Netherworld token's guidance. When the others entered his world, his figure flashed and disappeared. The next moment, Zichen appeared in a space. The light of the teleportation formation lingered around. Zichen walked out of the teleportation formation. At this moment, there were many guards around, watching him. After sensing that Zichen was a rank 2, someone was very surprised and wanted to come forward to ask. The next moment, he was stopped by others. The person who stopped him shook his head. His eyes were full of fear. This rank 2 king, who had just arrived, did not understand his companion's behavior. At this moment, someone quickly came forward and said respectfully, "Greetings, sir." Seeing that the rank 2 king leader was so polite to the other party, these newcomers were even more puzzled. But soon, he and the others who were puzzled understood the reason. Because there were exclamations all around. Among the exclamations, he heard Zichen's name. Now in the Netherworld, who had not heard of Zichen's name, he had been besieged by countless natives for several years. Under the circumstances that the natives had suffered heavy losses, he had successfully escaped. It could be said that in just a few years, he had killed more natives than all the other Netherworld members combined. Is Sir Netherworld here? Zichen did not care about the surprised gazes around him. He looked at rank 2 king in front of him and asked, "Yes, sir. Please follow me." Zichen left the teleportation area under the lead of rank 2 king. Wherever he passed, everyone looked at him. While they were amazed, there was also a touch of curiosity and expectation, because everyone knew that he had disappeared because he had found the awakening altar. Chapter 3042. Zichen met Lord Netherworld at the door. Lord Netherworld had already heard the announcement and knew that Zichun had come. Congratulations. Lord Netherworld smiled as he looked at Zichun, who was walking over. Zichun said politely, "This is all thanks to Lord Netherworld's help. If it were not for the fact that his clone had obtained the power of the underworld, Zichun would not have been able to face the encirclement so easily back then. Moreover, the battle had lasted for several years, and he had killed countless aboriginals. Many people have gotten the opportunity, but none of them were like you. This is also your good fortune. You don't have to be too humble." This strongest expert of the underworld had clearly also found out about the battle prowess of Zichun's clone through other channels. When he found out about the 90% conversion rate, he was also extremely shocked. However, he did not ask too much about this matter today. Last time, we intended to make a move. However, the enemy came aggressively and caused us great losses. The subordinate who had brought Zichun here earlier had already left. Lord Netherworld personally brought Zichun into the living room and said this as an explanation. Zichun sighed and said, "Indeed, the aboriginals last time were really too crazy. If it weren't for my good luck, I'm afraid I wouldn't have been able to see Lord Netherworld. Although Paramello's talent in this world is not high, he is an extremely intelligent person. Our people have suffered many losses at his hands. Moreover, he has never failed in any of the battles he has participated in, whether it is to seize territory or snatch resources. The last time could be considered his only failure in history." Lord Netherworld said, "I heard that you guys entered an awakening altar. I wonder if you have awakened, Zichun?" Zichun had nothing to hide about this. He nodded and said, "I have awakened. I can indeed fight against the aboriginals." Lord Netherworld heard this and immediately said, "Congratulations. Congratulations." Zichun said, "This time, I came here to exchange for some resources. Another reason is to ask Lord Netherworld some questions about the aboriginals of this world. I hope Lord Netherworld can tell me." "Oh, what questions are they?" Lord Netherworld asked curiously. "The structure of this world and the strongest expert in this world. What level is he at? And those resources, I wonder if we can get them?" This was the purpose of Zichun's visit. With the awakening altar, he indeed had plans to expand his influence. It was because the people on this life star needed a long time to grow. Moreover, his force lacked King God Realm experts. Of course, he wouldn't miss this chance. This was probably the main reason God had asked Ichien to come here. Whether it was for Ichien or for himself, Zichun could not waste this rare opportunity. There was more than one son of God in the firmament. If he were to wait for the others to arrive, he would be in deep trouble. When the Son of God came to this world, he would be able to sense this world and summon the awakening altar. Last time, because Ichien and Li Ai had been in his world, they had been cut off from this kind of connection, which caused them to waste a few years. Zichun wanted to have a comprehensive understanding of this world. Lord Netherworld could vaguely guess the reason. He thought for a while and then said, "Under normal circumstances, the strongest expert in this world should be a third-grade king because the God King's path to heaven doesn't stop at this level. After the realm of third grade, because of the rules of this world, they can't get energy from this area. Thus, after reaching third grade, they will leave this area and go to the next level. However, to be safe, some families will have one or two experts who have paid a big price to reach fourth grade. They are the strongest experts of the native families. They protect their families from being invaded or swallowed. Anyway, the natives aren't as united as you think. Wars have been going on for a long time. About the resources, except for the high-quality Supreme Crystal, we can refine it directly. But most of them need the natives to process it. It's like the Craftsman clan can refine weapons and armors, which we're not good at. I remember that I told you that the natives used to work for the God clan. After the God clan came here, they only needed to sense the awakening power. The natives took care of everything else." Zichun said, "In other words, we can't leave the natives?" Lord Netherworld nodded and said, "The natives can't leave the God clan. In other words, they can't leave the God clan who has an awakened power. This is because they need more labor to mine and produce." Zichun was now only in the realm of second grade. He might not be able to deal with a fourth grade. Once he started to recruit the God clan on a large scale, the enemies of fourth grade would come knocking on their door. They would be in danger. "Sir, What realm are you in now? Zichen looked at Lord Netherworld and asked. I just reached 4th grade, Lord Netherworld said. Zichen said, to be honest, I got an awakening altar this time. I plan to create a force to awaken more God Clan and fight against the natives. Lord Netherworld had already guessed it, but he was still surprised when he heard Zichun say it. In this world, controlling the awakening altar was equivalent to controlling the life of all the God Clan. If Zichun expanded his force, he would be able to recruit many God Kings in an instant. He would be even more popular than Lord Netherworld. Zichun continued, however, it will take a long time for the God Clan to awaken. I'm afraid it will take decades or even centuries. I'm worried that it will cause trouble during this time. Lord Netherworld obviously did not know the details of the awakening. However, from the information he heard, it was destined to take some time. What Zichun said made sense. He thought for a moment and said, this is indeed a threat. But if you are careful, there should be hope. Although the 4th grade clans are very strong, they may not attack you. For example, the Netherworld that I created. They know that you are a threat, but they still don't do anything. Also, the encirclement against you. Even the 3rd grade clans went, but none of the 4th grade clans went, right? Why is that? Zichen asked, puzzled. If you want to reach rank 4, you have to pay a great price. There aren't many rank 4 experts in the indigenous tribes. They are the true foundation. Only when the tribe is destroyed will they appear to resolve the crisis, Lord Netherworld said. In other words, as long as I don't step into their clans, they won't appear? Zichen asked. From what I know, that is the case. However, we can't rule out other possibilities. Zichun nodded. Regardless of whether the 4th grade clans would come, he had to find a way to build his force. After exchanging the resources with Lord Netherworld, he bid farewell and left. After leaving Netherworld, his first step was to recruit people. He had already chosen his target. It was the Cinema Force that he used to be in. He was more familiar with that place because Whaley was there. Chapter 3043. Zichun left Netherworld and brought his men to Cinema Force. You seem to trust Lord Netherworld a lot. Aren't you afraid that he'll expose us? Su Mingyao looked at Zichun. People will find out that we're building an organization sooner or later. We'll have to fight next. That doesn't matter. Besides, we already know the situation in this world, don't we? Zichun said with a smile. Su Mingyao said worriedly, what if a 4th grade king attacks? With our current strength, we can't fight a 4th grade king. Zichun's expression turned serious. That's what I'm most worried about. Rank 4 is troublesome. Why don't we set up a secret base first? Don't announce it to the public and hide it for now? Wait until we've nurtured many powerhouses before announcing it to the public? Su Mingyao suggested. Not only would a rank 4 kill, but they would also destroy the awakening altar. If the altar was destroyed, everything would be over. Leave the hiding altar to me. Hide it in an independent space. Rank 4 shouldn't be able to find it. Ichien stood on the other side of Zichun and said, that's good too. Zichun nodded and asked, how many people can the altar awaken at the same time? Zichun had more than 20 people. Although it was not crowded at all, Zichun felt that this altar was extraordinary. Perhaps it had other tricks up its sleeves. A few hundred people. Ichien said, the awakening altar can be enlarged and shrunk. However, I suggest that it's best to find godly kings who have progressed step by step. Are there? Zichun said. Am I not one? Many godly tribes in the heavenly realm are not born godly tribes. Many of them obtained opportunities and progressed step by step. There may not be many of them, but there are definitely some. Hearing Ichien's suggestion, Zichun nodded. After a few long-distance teleportations, Zichun arrived at Cinema Force once again. This was the first place they stayed in after arriving in this world. This was also his goal. If he guessed correctly, the information about them had also spread from here. With a flash, Zichun appeared in the sky above Cinema Force. Many god kings and god generals worked listlessly. They could not see any hope for the future, so they were just idling away their days. Zichun's appearance did not attract much attention. Everyone was already numb to it. One of them inadvertently raised his head. When he saw Zichun's appearance, he was slightly startled, and a hint of confusion appeared in his lifeless eyes. He seemed to have seen this person somewhere before. In the next instant, even more people appeared beside Zichen. Seeing these people, Zichen's eyes shone with a bright light, his eyes once again glowing with radiance. "It's you." He let out a cry of surprise because he didn't know Zichen's name. More people looked up and saw Zichen and his friends in the air. Most of them didn't know Zichen's name, but that didn't stop them from recognizing Zichen. Many people had seen the battle back then. They were extremely shocked that Zichen and the others could easily kill the natives. Moreover, it was because of that incident that they knew about the awakening altar. Cries constantly rang out in the surroundings. Even more god kings raised their heads to look at this scene in shock. There were more and more people, and all of them had recovered their spirits. "Where is your leader?" Zichen looked at the crowd below and asked coldly. "I am." A rank 2 king flew over quickly. He cupped his fists at Zichen and said, "Sir, I am Kaima." Zichen looked at Kaima and asked, "Our matter should have started from here, right?" Kaima didn't hide anything. He nodded and said, "Yes, it was Sen In who told the natives who came here to collect materials." Sen In, Kaima. Zichen seemed to have guessed the structure of this force. He asked, "Where is he?" Sen In left a few years ago after he broke through to rank 3. Where did he go? Another level. Since he had left, the matter could not be investigated. He glanced at Kaima and said, "From now on, I will take over this force." Kaima cupped his fists and said, "We couldn't ask for more." Zichen stood in the air and looked down at the god generals and god kings. He said, "From today onwards, the Senma force will be disbanded and a new force will be born. The name of this force is Nightmare. It means that the natives' nightmare is coming." Everyone looked at each other, but their expressions didn't change much. "Next, we will fight the natives. If you want to leave, you can leave at any time. If you want to stay, we will welcome you. However, if you stay, you must be prepared to fight the natives. At the same time, you must be prepared to die in battle. Of course, you must also be prepared to awaken your powers," Zichen said. The god race, who hadn't done anything before, suddenly opened their eyes wide. Their expressions changed greatly. "Sir, what did you just say?" Kaima, who was in front of Zichen, asked. "Be prepared to die in battle at any time," Zichen said. Kaima shook his head and said, "No, we can die at any time. So we are not afraid of dying in battle. It's the last sentence. You said we must be prepared to awaken, right?" "That's right." Zichen nodded and said, "Is there a problem?" "Sir, is what you said true? Sir, can you really help us awaken?" Kaima asked excitedly. Among the crowd, those from the divine race were also looking at Zichen without blinking. Zichen shook his head and said, "I can only provide you with an opportunity. Whether you can awaken or not is up to you." As soon as he said this, the crowd went wild. All the god race began to cheer. After so many years of suppression, they finally saw hope today. Kaima is willing to be loyal to Sir until death. Kaima knelt on one knee in the air with a respectful expression. Geta is willing to be loyal to Sir until death. Gear is willing to be loyal to Sir and fight to the death for Sir. One by one, the god race members knelt on one knee, respectfully and devoutly expressing their sincerity. Their voices were loud and clear, like rolling thunder. In the blink of an eye, everyone in the Senma force knelt and declared their loyalty. After so many years of suppression, they finally had an opportunity today. How could they miss it? Whaley is willing to be loyal to Sir. In the crowd, Whaley raised his head to look at this scene, and his expression became excited. He once again rejoiced that he had made the right choice. Zichen looked at all the god race members and said, "My name is Zichen, and from now on, I will be the leader of Nightmare. I will not let you all die for no reason. Even if it is a battle to the death, I will charge to the front and fight with you all. You are not my servants, nor are you my slaves. You are now my subordinates, and in the future, you may become friends with me, Zichen." "Kaima." Zichen looked at Kaima. "Here." Kaima replied loudly, "You and Whaley calculate the number of people here. I want to reorganize them," Zichen said. "Yes." Chapter 3044. Kaima looked at Zichen's friends and was about to respectfully ask them which one of them was Wei Li. Suddenly, a rank 9 divine general came over. He looked at Zichen and said excitedly, "I knew you could do it." Zichen looked at Wei Li and said, "I'll have to trouble you with the following matters." Wei Li said, "It's my honor." Then he turned around and said to Kaima, "Sir, I'm Wei Li, Brother Wei. We'll have to work together more from now on." The astonishment in Kaima's eyes turned into a smile. Wei Li was clearly acquainted with Leader Zichen. How could Kaima dare to treat him as the lord he was referring to? Below them, many people knew Wei Li. Previously, he was just a minor, but in the blink of an eye, he had become the new leader's favorite. This change made them feel very complicated. Just like that, the Nightmare faction was formed. They used Senma's original group of people, but Zichen needed to make some adjustments. A large hall appeared in the middle of the Nightmare faction. Although the grade of the hall wasn't high, no one would dare to destroy it. Zichen and the others entered the hall. Apart from Li Ai and the others, who were still comprehending the power of laws, everyone else was present. Zichen sat on the main seat, and the others sat on the sides. This kind of seating hadn't been seen for many years. When the Boundless sect was still around, Zichen sat on the main seat as the sect master. Just like that, the faction was formed. Although the name Nightmare was a bit strange, it had been discussed before. Originally, they wanted to call it the Grim Reaper, but after some discussion, they changed it to Nightmare. This was because they didn't have the combat strength of the Grim Reaper. As for Nightmare, they could give it to the natives, or the natives could give it to them. It was to intimidate the enemy, but also to remind themselves that Nightmare could come at any time. Zichen looked at everyone and said with a bitter smile, "Another faction has been formed. What do you all think?" Since the faction had been formed, no one had any objections. "I suggest that we have more leaders," Monk said. "For example, a second leader, a third leader, something like that." Zichen laughed and said, "We have more than 20 people here. Does that mean we have 20 leaders?" Thinking back to when they had introduced themselves to the others, they couldn't help but smile. Tyrant said, "Wouldn't it be better to divide them into male and female leaders? You are the male leader, I am the second male leader, Yiqian is the female leader, Meng Yao is the second female leader, and so on." The demon ape said, "In that case, there are more than 10 leaders. Why are you the second leader and not the 12th leader?" The monk said proudly, "Because Lord Zhang is powerful, the number 1 defense in the world. Being the second in command is already an injustice. I believe that even if I were to become the first in command, no one would have any objections." Hearing this, the others burst into laughter. The devil ape, on the other hand, was impressed by how thick-skinned the monk was. He didn't even use the light shield during the battle. Since we're determined to develop a force, we naturally have to manage it well. How about this? I see that there are some members of the goddess clan in the team. Let's separate the men and women. We'll each lead a team. When the laughter subsides, Su Mengyao stands up and says, "Regarding the management of a force, Su Mengyao had the most say. In the past, the Everlasting Sect was managed by her and a few other women. Everyone will lead a team to protect everyone's safety. Let them mine resources in peace. In between, take out some resources and let the qualified divine generals break through first. During the reorganization, we can find the first batch of qualified divine kings and let them awaken first." Since they had decided to establish a force, they naturally had to have a corresponding method. Moreover, there might be battles later, so many problems would naturally arise. Zichen knew nothing about the management of a force, so he naturally did as Su Mengyao said. After Su Mengyao explained the following arrangements, she said again, "Right now, we don't have any foundation, so it's not suitable for us to expand our force. If other forces are willing to join us, we can't agree for now." This was clearly said to Zichen, because he was the true leader. Okay, Zichen nodded. Naturally, he would listen to Su Mengyao. Wei Li naturally became in existence on the same level as Kaima. After that, all the divine generals who had gone out were called back. When they heard that the Senma force had disbanded and become the Nightmare force, they were very puzzled. If changing a name could make a force stronger, then they would rather change a name every day. Nowadays, the strength of a force didn't depend on numbers, but on the number of experts who could fight against the natives. However, When they heard that it was the divine general who had made the natives suffer a great loss, they were greatly shocked. Because that person had left from the Senma force, every time they mentioned him, they felt a great deal of pride in their hearts. Knowing that there was still a chance to awaken, they were extremely excited and immediately turned back. Wei and Kaima did a head count of the original forces. Currently, in the Nightmare Force, there were 2,565 first-stage kings. There were 12 second-grade kings. As for ninth-grade divine generals, there were more than 8,000 of them. There was no specific count because there were people dying every day. In this place, the lives of ninth-grade divine generals were very low. They were truly in a precarious situation. Divide these Wang Yiping into two teams, one for the men and one for the women. Zichun reorganized the Wang Yiping according to Su Mengyao's instructions. Next, Monk and the others took on the role of team leader. They were responsible for leading the team to kill heavenly beasts. With them, there was no more bait in the team. As for the mines, there were also a few people in charge of guarding. Once there was danger, they would take the initiative to attack. It took 3 days to divide the teams. After that, it was time to recruit those divine generals who had gone through the Earth Prime stage. Regardless of whether they were divine generals or divine kings, as long as they had gone through the Earth Prime stage, they could join. Most of the divine generals were confused when they heard about this stage. Only a few of them knew what the Earth Prime stage was. It was the proof of their journey, indicating that they had walked step by step to reach where they were today. In the heavenly realm, this situation was seen as impure bloodline and would be despised by many divine generals. However, now, the accumulation of the past had become a shortcut to their strength. To Zichen's surprise, Wei also walked out. The former number one on the roll of generals had also walked step by step to reach where he was today. Looking at the many ninth-grade divine generals in front of him, Zichun was surprised when he found out that almost all of them were powerhouses who had once been on the roll of generals after Wei's introduction. It seemed that these powerhouses were not simply lucky to have reached where they were today. You ninth-grade divine generals, go get the Supreme Crystal and prepare to break through. As for Wang Yiping, go ahead and awaken your strength. Hearing Zichen's words, the others were in an uproar. They did not expect it to be like this. After waving his hand to signal the team to disperse, the ninth-grade divine general stepped forward excitedly, waiting for the Supreme Crystal to be distributed. Chapter 3045. These ninth-grade divine generals had been here for several years. Their lives were precarious, and they had to mine every day in fear. However, it was this kind of work that put their lives on the line that caused them to be unable to gather even one Supreme Crystal. In this world, under the suppression of the natives, resources were too precious. Right now, they were not doing anything. Could they really get any resources? The answer was yes. Su Mengyao was in charge of distributing the resources. She was in charge of this. Yiqian was in charge of bringing Wang Yiping to the awakening altar to awaken their rule power. These few ninth-grade divine generals each received 2 Supreme Crystals. During this period, they did not need to mine anymore. They only needed to refine the Supreme Crystal until they broke through. Su Mengyao told them that if they had not broken through after refining, they could come to her for more. Many people felt that it was a pity. They hated themselves for not being able to reach the Earth Prime realm. Although it was still dangerous for them to mine again, fortunately, there were strong cultivators guarding them. This greatly reduced the danger. After a few days, the force was back on track. Everything was developing in an orderly manner. On this day, Kaima came to Zichen's hall and said, "Sir is looking for me. When do the natives come here to get resources?" Zichen asked. "Normally, they come once every half a year." Kaima answered respectfully. "How do they exchange for resources?" "There is no specific amount. It depends on their mood. Sometimes it is more, sometimes it is less. Because we have never been to the city, we do not know the price. In short, it is all kinds of oppression that allows us to barely survive." Zichen nodded and said, "How many mineral veins do we have now?" "A total of 5 mineral veins. They are number 1 to 5. Number 3 is the largest and the most dangerous. Heavenly beasts often go there, causing us great losses," Kaima said. Zichen nodded and said, "Send someone to take me to those mineral veins." Kaima found Bouvier. He used to be the person in charge of recruiting divine generals. After the change in the organization, he was called back and had been staying in the organization ever since. Zichun naturally recognized Bouvier. He was the one who had brought everyone to the Senma faction. "Sir, are you going to investigate the mine?" Bouvier cupped his fists and bowed. "Yes, let's go." This time, Su Mingyao went with Zichun. Bouvier took the two of them to the number 1 lode. "We discovered this vein many years ago. The quality of the crystals mined is not very high, but it is very easy." Above the number 1 mineral vein, Bouvier pointed at the mineral vein below. At this moment, Longhu was guarding the mineral vein. When he saw Zichun and Su Mingyao, he nodded at them and did not come over. Zichun looked at Su Mingyao and saw a ray of light flying out from her body. It was the spirit-devouring king plant. The spirit-devouring king plant turned into a ray of light and flew down to the mineral vein, disappearing into the hard ground. In terms of sensing spiritual energy, no one in Zichen's team could compare with the spirit-devouring king plant. In the past, it could even sense the mountain spirits and devour them. Bouvier had no idea what Zichun was doing, but he had heard about this plant. It was said that it could even kill the natives, which was quite surprising. After waiting for 15 minutes, the spirit-devouring king plant turned into a ray of light again and disappeared beside Su Mingyao. She did not give any other advice. Zichen said, "Let's go to number 2. The situation in the number 2 mineral vein was better than the number 1 mineral vein, followed by the number 3 mineral vein. The number 3 mineral vein was the largest, and Lei Ting was guarding it. When Zichen arrived, he was fighting with a few heavenly beasts. As soon as the long spear of the 9 extremes weapons appeared, a powerful wave of energy swept across the area, and the battle ended quickly. The divine generals and miners cheered in the distance. In the past, when facing these heavenly beasts, they could only run. If they were unlucky, they would die. This situation would continue until the heavenly beasts left. Now, they finally did not have to run anymore. The spirit-devouring king plant continued to sneak into the mineral vein. This time, it took a little longer. They waited for a full hour. After it appeared, the light flowing around it dimmed a little. After it disappeared in front of Su Mingyao, Su Mengyao's expression changed a little. Next, Zichun said. When they arrived at the 4th mine, Bouvier pointed at the mine below and said, "This is what we obtained from the battle. We originally thought that we would be able to mine even more divine king crystals, but who would have thought that we would be able to mine a piece of soul essence? Back then, the hundreds of people in the mine all died, and that soul essence is also missing. It was a great opportunity to mine a soul essence, but for some ordinary miners, it was a great danger." The spirit-devouring king plant continued to sneak in and returned after 15 minutes. Then, they went to the number 5 mineral vein. The spirit-devouring king plant also checked it. After that, the 3 of them went back. In the room, Su Mingyao said, "Xiao Ling checked 5 mineral veins. Except for the number 3 one, the others are not very valuable. The number 3 mineral vein is very big, and the area below it is even bigger. It is said that there is something inside that attracts it, but it is also dangerous." "Is it the God King's soul essence?" Zichen asked. Xiao Ling is not sure. After discussing with Su Mingyao, Zichun called Kaima. "Sir, what are your orders?" "Send people to the mineral veins except for the number 3 one. Give up those mineral veins and go to the number 3 mineral vein. Call back those who are looking for mineral veins. Let them explore the number 3 mineral vein and open a few more entrances." Hearing Zichen's words, Kaima was very surprised. If that was the case, wouldn't the other mineral veins be wasted? Seeing that Lin Fan had no intention to explain, he took the order and left. After that, there was an uproar. Everyone did not understand Zichen's actions. Many of the miners were reluctant to go to the number 3 mineral vein because it was very dangerous. Fortunately, the captains would follow them. There were a total of 5 captains guarding the mineral veins. It was enough to ensure that they would not be disturbed by the heavenly beasts. As all the miners began to focus on mining the number 3 mineral vein, the mining speed of the vein sped up a lot. In the previous mining tunnels, some better quality ores gradually appeared. Although these ores could not form their own laws, they believed that as long as they continued mining, they would be able to mine a complete supreme crystal. Such a scene made the miners very excited. Moreover, Zichun had set up a point reward system. The more ores they mined every day, the more points they would be given. Later, they would use the points to exchange for a complete supreme crystal. During this period, all the heavenly beasts that came were killed by the 5 captains outside. Without any worries, they were full of enthusiasm. Time passed quickly. Half a year had passed. In this half a year, no one had awakened. "Sir, the aboriginals may come in a few days." This time, Kaimar reminded. Zichun nodded. He had not thought about how to deal with the aboriginals. It was impossible to take the initiative to ask for peace. There was bound to be a war between the two sides. "Let's take the initiative to fight." Zichun made up his mind. Chapter 3046. The group of 5 natives set off for the Sinma faction according to their agreement. "Matthew, the place we're heading to this time is the place Zichun first went after coming to this world, right?" One of the natives asked as they moved forward. The native named Matthew nodded and said, "Yes, that's the faction. The leader of the Sinma faction told us about it, but we weren't able to kill Zichun at that time. Last time, it was clearly a situation of certain death, but he still managed to escape." "What a pity," said one of the natives regretfully. Matthew said, "Is it just a pity? Zichun has disappeared for several years. When he reappears, it's definitely time for him to awaken. At that time, he'll be even more dangerous to us. He might even become a disaster for us." "That's not necessarily the case, right? We have a lot of people, but they only have a few dozen." "A few dozen? You know, Zichun didn't awaken. How many of us did he kill in those few years? Once he awakens, his combat strength will only be stronger." "So what? We have a lot of resources on our side. Once we send him out, he'll definitely die." As they chatted, they saw the Sinma faction in the distance. Looking at the Protoss in the faction, Matthew suddenly frowned. "What's wrong?" One of the natives sensed Matthew's abnormality. "There seems to be something different." "What's different?" "In the past, they were all lifeless, but now they seem to be different." Matthew had a bad feeling in his heart because he had been here many times. Those people were like walking corpses, but now they had souls. This situation indicated that they were full of interest in life again, or that they had rekindled hope. Why was this? Who gave them hope? He shifted his gaze and saw the Great Hall in the faction. He had been here half a year ago, but this Great Hall wasn't there. "Call your leader out?" At this time, they had already reached the sky above the Sinma faction. There was no time to think. Many of the Protoss looked up at the 5 people in the sky. Although they were like walking corpses in the past, they were still respectful when they saw them. However, at that moment, those people's gazes were filled with pity. Matthew had been paying attention to the expressions of these people. After reading the different emotions in their eyes, his face changed as if he had thought of something. Right at this moment, a voice sounded from below. "I am the leader." The voice came from the hall. Soon after, a person walked out. It was a young man. He wore a brand new black robe and had a faint smile on his face. Such a seemingly gentle youth was like a demon in the eyes of the 5 people. Their expressions changed greatly, and they were filled with terror. Subconsciously, they retreated backward, wanting to turn around and escape. "Do you think you can escape?" That young man spoke, a smile still on his face. The 5 of them were pale and their bodies were trembling, but they didn't dare to move. The Protoss below felt very relieved. The natives used to be so arrogant, but now they were scared half to death in front of their leader, Zichun. Zichun walked in front of the 5 people and said, "Do you know me?" The 5 of them nodded at once, but soon shook their heads again. Zichun smiled and said, "It doesn't matter. Now, hand over the thing." "What thing?" Matthew asked, his voice trembling. "Supreme crystal. Aren't you here to exchange for resources?" Zichun said, "Also, you guys already have some resources on you. Yeah, just give me your spatial spirit rings." The 5 of them naturally didn't dare to resist. They quickly took out the things and handed them to Zichun. Zichun took them and opened them one by one. Then, He frowned and said, "There is only a small amount of superm crystal." "No, that's all," Matthew said in horror, afraid that Zichun would kill them. The other four nodded and said that there was nothing left. "There is too little. It's not enough. How about this? The four of them are detained. You go back and get the superm crystal to ransom them." Zichun looked at Matthew and said. The other four's faces changed again. They were terrified and begged for mercy. Zichun stretched out his hand and drew a line in front of him. A circle of energy appeared out of thin air. Zichun looked at the four people in the circle and said, "This is called a prison. Now, the four of you are my captives. If you want to live, you have to ransom them with resources. You can live in this prison. Once you leave, you will have to bear the consequences." Zichun looked at Matthew and said, "You can go back now." After that, he ignored Matthew and returned to the hall. Matthew, who was outside the circle of energy, was stunned. The four people in the circle were terrified. "What should we do now?" Matthew looked at the four through the circle of energy that didn't have the slightest strong fluctuation. One of them squeezed out a smile that was uglier than crying and said, "Matthew, whether we can live or not depends on you. Go back and inform the family to bring some superm crystal." The circle of energy didn't fluctuate at all. It was obviously drawn casually, but the four didn't dare to step out. In the war initiated by Paramello, nearly 1,000 indigenous people died, including first and second grades. To Zichun, who had killed people like Scything Flax, the lives of the four of them were really nothing. Therefore, even though they knew that the circle of energy didn't have a strong resistance, they didn't dare to leave. They could only ask Matthew to go back and get the resources. As for Matthew, who was outside the circle of energy, he was naturally the least afraid compared to everyone in the circle. This was because he could leave without worrying about being killed. After cupping his fists at them, he turned around and left. His speed was getting faster and faster. The divine generals below looked at the indigenous people mockingly. They had been so arrogant before, but now they were scared out of their wits by leader Zichun's casual drawing of a circle. Zichun returned to the hall. Su Mengyao looked at him and asked, "What are you going to do?" "Everything is difficult at the beginning," said Zichun. "This battle is unavoidable, so let's fight." "Should we inform the others to come back?" asked Su Mengyao. "No. Their primary target is me, so they will definitely attack me. The development of the forces will continue as usual. We just need to wait for them to come." Matthew was from the Klee family, which was a big family in the Soul Clan. In the last battle, the Klee family suffered a great loss. Mini Wang Yiping died. Chapter 3047. The Klee family was in an uproar because of Klimathu's words. "What? Matthew, what did you say?" The patriarch of the Klee family walked out and said to Matthew, who was walking towards them, "Master, Zichun is back. He's in the Simma force under our control. All the people I brought with me have been detained. He wants me to ransom them with the superm crystal," Klimathu said in a panic. "What's his strength now?" the master asked. "Huh." Klimathu was stunned. "I didn't notice. He didn't do anything. He just detained the four of us and asked me to come back to get the resources." No matter what his strength was, Zichun was a huge threat to the Klee family. Obviously, Matthew's return to get the resources was only an incentive. It was more to tell the natives that he was back. "Someone, go and inform Paramello of the Paramello family that Zichun is back. Let's see how he deals with it." Zichun was not just a matter of the Klee family. It was something that all the natives had to face. News of Zichun's return spread quickly among the families. The natives, who had just calmed down for a few years, were worried again. The masters of many forces gathered in Paramello's family. Anything related to Zichun was a big deal. Looking at the masters, Paramello said, "Zichun is obviously provoking us. There's no other way. Let's go find a rank 4. A rank 4? The others were stunned. If they wanted to find a rank 4, why would they need to find him? It's only been a few years. According to our calculations, he can't have awakened his strength. Maybe this is our chance, the master of the Meek family said. Several other patriarchs nodded in agreement with this point of view. They were more familiar with the awakened strength of the Protoss than the Protoss here. Paramello said calmly, If common sense is useful, can Zichun beat us? You should know how many people died in the last battle, right? If he didn't awaken his strength, he would be hiding in some corner. He wouldn't dare to show himself. Now that he has appeared, he must have absolute confidence. Other than rank 4, there is no other way. Looking at the awkward expressions on the faces of the family heads, Paramello said, "Don't tell me that your family doesn't have a rank 4 martial artist. At such a dangerous time, it's not the time to hide your strength and fuss over each other. We think that sending a rank 3 is enough. I believe it's enough to kill that Zichun." Another family head said, "That's right. Why don't we send out a rank 3 first?" The other patriarchs gave their suggestions one after another. As for why they were determined not to mention the matter of sending out a rank 4, only they knew in their hearts. But what about our people? The family head of the Klee family had an ugly look on his face. "We still have 4 people who are being held captive. Are we just going to let them die like this?" Paramello said, "Wouldn't it be better to send a rank 4 to rescue him? We are just a small family. How could we have a rank 4? The Klee family's master smiled bitterly. Paramello spread out his hands and said, "Everyone, if none of you are willing to send a rank 4, then I'm sorry, but I have no other choice." "What do you mean? Are you not going to care about this matter anymore? Last time, you were the one who led people to surround and kill him. Now that he's back, are you going to wash your hands of it?" One of the patriarchs said in dissatisfaction, "Paramello, I'll leave this matter to you." An old voice came from outside the door. It was the Paramello family's master. "Yes." Paramello nodded in response. Then, he looked at the patriarchs of the other forces and said, "Let's make this clear first. If we don't send out a rank 4 this time, I can't guarantee that we can kill Zichun." The other patriarchs nodded. As long as they did not send out a rank 4, everything was negotiable. "What about our people?" the Klee family had asked. "That's up to you." Paramello arranged for the Spirit Eagle to go out and investigate again. Before he could determine the strength of the enemy, he could not make a move. The Klee family's master seemed very helpless. He could only arrange for Matthew to go out again with resources. He could not let his family members be killed. While Matthew was heading to the Sinma faction, many Spirit Eagles were flying above his head. Before he reached the Sinma faction, the Spirit Eagles had already arrived. They saw the 4 people from the Klee family. They were still standing there, not moving at all these days, letting the wind blow and the sun shine on them. The Spirit Eagles scattered in the air and flew in different directions. Matthew had arrived. When the 4 people saw Matthew, their faces were filled with excitement. "Zichun, I've brought the resources," Matthew said to the people in the hall below. Zichun walked out of the hall and said with a smile, "Oh, how many did you bring?" Matthew took out a spatial spirit ring, which contained 400 pieces of superm crystal. Seeing the superm crystal, Zichun smiled and said, "Are your people so worthless?" He turned his head to look at the 4 people and said, "The 4 of you are only worth 400 pieces of superm crystal." The 4 people's faces were somewhat unsightly, but they did not dare to say anything. Zichun looked at Matthew and said, "You take the things back. I'll take their lives." The 4 people's faces turned pale, and they immediately begged for mercy. Matthew said in horror, wait a moment, I'll go back and get the resources." Zichun glanced at Matthew and said coldly, "No need. You stay as well. Someone will report to me." Zichun raised his head to look at the horizon. There were black dots circling in the sky. They were spirit eagles. Matthew helplessly walked into the circle of light. Facing the blaming eyes of his 4 companions, he could only smile bitterly. His family had made him bring so much superm crystal. He was also very helpless. "It seems that you are used to exploiting others. Now, even your lives are like this." Zichun smiled coldly and turned to walk toward the hall. The Spirit Eagle spread out, covering the entire Sinma faction. Then, they quickly spread out to investigate everything. Through the Spirit Eagles, Paramello's face became increasingly unsightly. He saw Zichun's friends and even saw them fight. Naturally, all of them had awakened. He did not see an awakening altar, but he found it difficult to relax. Zichun dared to openly take over a faction. Clearly, he wanted to expand his faction. Under such circumstances, It was impossible that he did not have an awakening altar. It could be said that their current enemy was Zichun, but if they continued to expand, their enemy would be the entire god race. This was the danger of extermination. He turned to look at the family heads and said, Zichun has begun to expand his faction. Our future enemy is no longer Zichun's group, but the endless god race. When he said this, all the family heads' expressions changed greatly. Do you know where the altar is? How about we just destroy it? A family head asked. The altar has been hidden by them. At present, only his friends can be seen, but not the altar. Chapter 3048. The others all agreed to attack Zichun's friends first. In their words, this was called attacking them one by one. Hearing this, Paramello smiled bitterly and said, If we kill his friends, have you thought about the consequences? They're all enemies. What consequences will we face? Asked one of the patriarchs. If we kill his friends, then Zichun will have nothing to worry about. Under such circumstances, what do you think he'll do? Paramello said, Like infiltrating our city? At these words, everyone's expression changed again. If Zichun really infiltrated their city alone, then what followed would be a nightmare. A nightmare that they would not be able to wake up from. Apart from a select few powerhouses, who else could fight against him? Yes, he's an enemy. We can kill him first. As for his friends, they're not a threat at all, so there's no need to attack them first. Paramello said, Send out rank 4s. This is a war for the survival of our race. The patriarchs were still hesitating. Although it was only one sentence to send out rank 4s, the implications were enormous. Rank 4s would not appear until it was truly a matter of life and death. We can send people to investigate first and accurately obtain some clues about Zichun, said another patriarch. The other patriarchs nodded. Seeing this, Paramello did not say anything else. Everyone was no longer the same as they had been a few years ago. Zichun's threat had become even greater. Under such circumstances, all the factions began to think for themselves and were no longer united. He said, That's fine too. Send people to investigate first. Once we find out the location of the awakening altar, send out rank 3s and destroy them in one fell swoop. The patriarchs finally nodded in agreement with Paramello's words. Paramello sneered in his heart. He had accurately grasped the true state of mind of these patriarchs. My lord, recently, many people have wanted to join us. Some are also trying to find out information about us. Kima came to the main hall and reported to Zichun what had happened recently. Now, Nightmare is no longer recruiting. As for finding out information, let them do as they please, Zichun said calmly. These Protoss were obviously under the orders of the natives. Zichun really did not care. He was waiting for the first battle. If they didn't fight, things would never be resolved. He had already reminded Tyrant and the others to be careful when they went out to hunt beasts, and not to stray too far away from their forces. He looked like he didn't care about the others, but in fact, if there was any danger, he could reach them with a single teleport. Zichun. Wei Li's voice came from outside the door. He walked in without waiting for Zichun's reply. Congratulations on your breakthrough. Zichun smiled as he looked at Wei Li, who was now Wang Yiping. Wei Li blushed with shame. When he first met Zichun, Zichun was only a 7th grade Divine General. At that time, he was already a 9th grade Divine General. Now, Zichun was already a level 2 king, and he had just broken through to level 1. Compared with Zichun, the gap was too big, so there was nothing to congratulate. Why do you have time to look for me? Zichun asked. Recently, more and more heavenly beasts have been coming to the third mine. Moreover, after mining at full strength, the quality of the Supreme Crystal is getting higher and higher. I believe that it won't be long before we can mine out the real Supreme Crystal. Every piece of Godly King Crystal had its own set of natural laws. It was of great significance to Godly Kings. Being able to mine out the real Supreme Crystal should be a good thing for a force. However, Wei Li's expression was very serious. Are you worried about the soul essence? Zichun asked. Yes. If this continues, we might be able to dig out the soul essence one day. However, if there is no powerhouse guarding it, the soul essence will escape, and this great opportunity will be wasted. Wei Li said, "If the natives' army comes and the soul essence appears, we will definitely miss it." Zichen said, "Don't worry. I know what to do with that mine." That's good. Those forces sent many divine kings to the Senma Force to investigate, or rather, the Nightmare Force. Through this name, the natives could see many problems. The information they received was not much different. There was indeed an awakening altar in the Nightmare Force, and a group of people had already gone to awaken it. However, until now, no one had been able to find out the location of the awakening altar. All the family heads gathered again. Although Paramello was also present, he had lost the absolute commander-in-chief position he had a few years ago. Zichen is already a second-grade king. His friends are also second-grade kings. In this case, we have to send out third-grade kings. That's right. Send out some third-grade kings and kill them in one fell swoop. Everything will be fine. I believe that if they are surrounded by a group of third-grade kings, none of them will be able to escape. These family heads talked one after another, discussing how to attack. After deciding to kill Zichen, they looked at Paramello, who had been silent all this while, and said, "What do you think, Paramello?" Paramello nodded and said, "The plan is not bad. If those third-grade kings can attack Zichen alone, it's not bad." That's right. Let's go all out and kill him in one blow. After the matter was settled, the next step was to take the initiative to attack. The personnel arrangement was a problem. In the end, more than 30 families decided to send one person each. In this way, there would be more than 30 third-grade kings. They believed that it would not be a problem to kill a mere second-grade king, Zichen. Zichen sat cross-legged in the hall, cultivating. He held a supreme crystal in his hand and refined the energy in it. Suddenly, he opened his eyes. A cold light flashed in his eyes. Third-grade kings? A smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. His figure disappeared from the hall. More than 30 third-grade kings were flying in this direction. They were silent and had a clear goal. Whoosh! Suddenly, a ray of light appeared in the crowd and turned into Zichen's appearance. "You're here for me, right?" Zichen looked at them with a faint smile on his face. He was facing a group of third-grade kings alone. There was no trace of nervousness on his face. At first, these third-grade kings were stunned. Then, a hint of joy appeared in their eyes. This was the first time they had seen someone come to their doorstep to die. The craftsmen immediately unfolded their artifact refining domains, enveloping the surroundings. Layers of oppressive power fell on Zichen. Several domains fell on Zichen. Sensing the oppressive aura, Zichen smiled faintly and said, "Not bad. Go to hell." The other third-grade kings surged with killing intent and displayed all kinds of powerful techniques. More than a dozen spirit eagles looked down from the sky, observing the details of the battle. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.